We're going to be talking about not true crime night, at least not for the first half. I'm going on YouTube almost exclusively right now. I would encourage anybody who wants to. You'll be probably able to hear the conversation on TikTok, but you'll be able to actually see everything on YouTube while we're here. But what we're going to be talking about today is, you know what? It's really hard to summarize this in just a quick couple sentences, but we're going to just call it narcissistic and emotionally immature parents and grandparents. So we're going to be going back to the roots of what this channel was. So I would encourage anybody who wants to jump on over to YouTube. All this information is right here. And I also put a link to it directly in my bio because it is a good conversation that you're definitely not going to want to miss if this is something. I'm going to say we're about to spill some serious tea is what we're about to do. So I'll give it a few minutes. We got some people jumping over on YouTube. I can see them up here. And yeah. Hey, Tammy. Hey, Max. So anyways, like I said, for all those of y'all who are just rolling in, I am live on YouTube. You can listen here on TikTok, but you can actually see the guests that I have with me on YouTube, which is Justin on TikTok on YouTube. There's a link in my bio. But tonight's going to be a little bit different. Like I said, we're going to be spilling some tea because we're just going to talk about basically what 50 years of Jamie, of 50 years of emotionally immature parents and abuse. Anyways, again, y'all can hear it here. I'll turn up the volume for YouTube, but if you want to jump over to YouTube, I would encourage y'all to do that, and please subscribe while you're there. So again, a little bit different. And the biggest reason that we're doing it on YouTube is that my nephew is apparently perma-banned from lives on TikTok. So we are going to work on that. But for tonight, that doesn't do us any favors. So we're going to be going there. So basically what's going on tonight for both YouTube and TikTok, and like I said, you can jump over here, is for the last 5-6 months, my father and I had been in a little bit of a tiff.
I think it's tiff.
It's tiff.
Huh?
It's tiff.
Whatever. A tiff. Been in a little bit of a tiff.
Mom, there are more to discuss tonight.
Yes. Anyways, so for his birthday, I decided to address that. My nephew decided to address it probably a month before.
Why did you decide to address
Mom's
birthday? That's relevant.
Huh?
Why did you decide?
Yes, I'm doing it on his birthday. It was relevant. Simply for the fact that he called me on my birthday, because this is what people who are typically narcissists do, to ruin my birthday. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to send him this on this birthday so he can see how it feels, even though they don't really care. So basically, hello. So basically, we're going to be talking about that because tonight or today, really everything kind of came to a head. And we were basically told that none of us were worth it, worth his pain, worth his feelings, worth anything. And that my father. So like I said, for anybody who's on here, what I would encourage, yes, Emmy, this is my sister and my nephew. So anybody who would like to see the whole conversation, like I said, I have guests on YouTube. I'm going to go ahead and probably do most of the focus there. I would encourage y'all to jump over and please follow while we're here. So I'm going to move this up so y'all can see the whole thing, and you can get to YouTube from the link in my bio or just going to Justin on TikTok on YouTube. So now we're going to go ahead and start talking about this. So I don't know. Let me turn it up so the TikTok people who aren't jumping over to YouTube can hear it. Where do we start? I would almost say that we let Jamie start because she's been dealing with it for the most decades.
Well, I am a little bit older than you. So, well, interestingly, Justin and I we're half siblings. We share a father, and we did not have a relationship growing up due to a combination of being raised by two narcissistic parents. And I was an only, and didn't realize that my childhood wasn't normal. As most abuse victims, you don't know what normal is when it's your only experience. And it wasn't until Justin and I reconnected that I started to realize that the things that had happened to me were not normal. And then what really sort of shook me up was when my oldest child, Will, wrote a letter to he who shall not be named, that I didn't even want to read. And I remember saying to Will, like, I don't want to read it because it's like taking a dog's face and rubbing it in shit, right?
She didn't want me to send it because she actively thought it would give him a heart attack.
Oh, he's not going to have a heart attack. He's in great
shape. I didn't even read it. Spoiler alert.
Well, we knew that he wasn't going to. I think we all knew he wasn't going to read it.
No, I thought he'd read it. I mean, I guess I'm the eternal optimist in all of this. And I keep hoping that one day he will realize that he's estranged himself from everybody and he'll want to do the right thing and he'll go and get therapy and he'll come to all of us and say, I have been wrong and I want to put things together. I'm 78 years old. I want to make things right and leave a legacy and gather all of my children and all of my grandchildren and atone and make this right. And that is the utopia that I am living in. Welcome.
Yeah, that's what you did. And then I've kind of explained to you in recent months. Okay, so let me give you guys a little bit of background here on how this has come to be. I think that we need to give them a little bit of a history lesson here. So Jamie and I only started having a relationship really in the last few years, last couple of years, because for those of y'all who were here early on and the saga that started my TikTok, my mom had an issue with Jamie, and the way that my mother is that if you had an issue, if she had an issue with you, you couldn't have a conversation with them or have a relationship with them because that was disloyal. On top of that,
she became my stepmom when I was 2.
She was.
And I lived with her and our father from the time I was 3 until I was 8. So, I mean, this isn't someone that just had she raised me and then had an issue with me.
Yeah, well, it's because things don't go the way that she wants, and that's how that essentially works. And then at the same time, when I was still very much on my mother's side, Jamie wanted to share everything, and I didn't want to hear it. So that didn't help the few times we saw each other. But then when everything went down the way that it went down, I called her up like I did so many other family members and said, I want to hear your side of the story, which is the first time. And just the floodgates opened. Is basically what happened. And I think, she was obviously appreciative of that whole situation. So basically from there, we've been talking about, our father, because she's never had anybody that she could share this with, at least that would understand on the same level that we're at, because you didn't have, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but also I knew a narcissist was like your mom, who I just define as an evil narcissist. And in my mind, if you were, in fact, I remember saying to you, because you said our father was a narcissist, and I'm like, no, he's not, because our father wasn't mean. And I do want to say, there was no sexual abuse. There really wasn't physical abuse on his part. She was abusive, but he was not. And so in my mind, that was what abuse was. And she was like mean and vindictive. And I don't believe, and I think all of us would agree, he is not mean or vindictive. And so that is a definition of, in my mind, and you see Will rolling their eyes, but so I didn't define it as narcissism until, Justin, you did a couple things. You started talking to family members and you started sharing things about my childhood that I had blocked out. And also, as you were growing and learning, you were sharing it with me. And I was like, wait, that's not normal.
Yeah. And I think that we found a lot of things normal for a very long time that Will knew wasn't normal, but we all had to get there on our own. So it's been a little bit, I don't know if you guys have the comments turned on. Somebody said,
I do.
How do you
I like you guys.
You have some fans in here too. So
okay.
Anyway, so basically what had happened, I don't even know where to start on this particular situation. Well, let's give a little bit more background, I guess.
I do.
So I know who look, they're just dying to speak. So let's just let Will have the floor, because
I sent the first letter. So I believe that I should be able to speak my truth.
Please speak your truth, Will.
Yeah, my truth.
The floor is yours.
So I have the perspective of Mom, I love you so much. I'm going to speak. I have the perspective of being raised by the victim of abuse. And that has resonated with me my entire life. You know, I saw the way that she was treated in other relationships, and then by her father, who I hated this man. I've hated him my whole life, for many, many reasons.
Elaborate on some of those reasons why. So
Elaborate on some of those reasons. Well, I came out to him as gay when I was 12, 14, just because I knew that he was going to hate it and I wanted drama. And he spent a good 15 minutes trying to tell me why gay people should not be able to adopt children. And that was morally correct. He took me and my sister to Europe, which was great. However, we were children, like 14, 11, and he got mad when we wanted to eat, when we had jet lag from the plane. He made us sleep like huddled together on a couch bed while he took the king bed. I blocked out a lot of that trip because it was just so awful. But every day we were pretty much consistently calling our mom and crying. I spent my last spring break before college, before COVID hit, trying to rectify things with him. And I ended up buying my own plane ticket home because he was so unbearable to be around.
After I begged Will.
So again, back to that topic of like being raised by an abuse victim who didn't know that she was abused. My mother really, really wanted us to love him the way that she loved her grandparents. And she really did not see that it was abuse, even though he was abusing her and later on, like, in a way, abusing us. He's a piece of shit. But anyway, so I hated him my whole life. I did everything I could to not talk to him, to not see him. That was unavoidable because my mother loved him and she wanted him around and she kept trying and trying and trying. You really wanted a relationship with him. You wanted things to get better. You were optimistic.
I grew up in a time where, you know, you didn't just cut off your parents. And again, because I didn't define what he did as abuse, he wasn't horribly bad and there were some good things. And you're right, I did love my grandparents, and I grew up in a time where you had a relationship with your grandparents, and my grandparents were worthy of having a relationship. And, you know, I kept hoping, and also I felt it was my responsibility to foster a relationship, although that's part of the issue we're having now is he thinks that I poisoned you guys against him.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
But anyway, so the things happen with Justin. Let me say, when Justin got him on TikTok, I was livid. I'm livid that he has a platform just because I hate. But
that was not a well thought out.
I'm aware, but I was really, really pissed. I was just so. Anyway, I've just hated him, and I got back in contact with Justin, who I had not had any sort of relationship with my entire life. I met him once. And I remember distinctly that one time where I did meet him. He put me in my car seat and then went to close the automatic door of the Honda Odyssey. And as it was closing, he said, "See you in like 14 years, I guess."
Yeah, well, that was probably about right because
that ended up being reality, but I really
no, it was way more than 14.
I grew up with the mentality that side of the family had a history of cutting each other off, and that was bad. And it was bad to cut off relatives, give people chances. And then obviously, since coming out as trans and having to go through a lot of additional things that just proved things that I already knew about that side of the family, I finally got the ability to, with permission, start cutting these people out. And basically, after I got back in contact with Justin, sorry, I have a lot to say, so I'm just going to say it, go on a billion tangents. Thank you, Mom. I see you trying to speak.
No, I was just going to say you have 3 people with ADHD.
I know, yeah. It's having a conversation, so I guarantee that is going to be fun.
I'm listening, but I'm just monitoring the TikTok side while we do this.
Yeah, I'm just so stop, think, talk. I got back in contact with Justin. All that stuff happens, and I finally decide that the way that I am going to go about this is I am going to write him a letter. And I wrote him, I believe it was 6 pages, a 6-page letter that I spent a good chunk of time writing, so much so I think I'm going to end up turning it into some sort of part of a memoir, because I do think it's a really good letter. Basically saying all the things that no one else had ever said to him, because he was so fragile. He didn't mean it. He's, you know, the excuse after excuse. I'm like, I have nothing to gain from this man at this point. He's leaving me no money. We have no relationship. So I left him, I wrote him a 6-page letter and sent it to him. And he did not read a word of it. So much so that he went and took it and blamed my mother for it, despite the fact that every word of that letter was meticulously written out to have a billion arguments, none of which involved her, and explicitly said that if he involved her, I was going to retaliate. And he did. Justin.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about where we kind of are at this moment. So first, I was very proud of Will's letter. They sent it to me, and I read it.
Is Angela's Navy wingman?
No.
We asked.
No. I really see. I'm struggling. I don't want to blow. I don't want to.
We can mute Jamie if we have to, but
I don't know why you invited her. She's the example of,
because here's the thing.
We're a very big spectrum of people who are acknowledging narcissistic parenthood and immature parenthood, in that she is brand spanking new to it, and still doesn't really accept it.
But here's the thing that's great about this, and I think this is where it comes in. And I know that, you know, I talk about generations a lot, but I think it's important because there are some generational divides and things that make generations different. You have Gen X, Millennial, and Gen Z. And I think that that's what makes this very interesting. So she needs to be here, you know.
She does.
That's what it is.
But,
and so let's talk about how we are specifically at this moment, what came to be, because people want the good stuff. Let's give them some of the juice. Let's give them the juice. So I will tell you, there were several catalysts that led up to them, and I will come back to those in a moment. But for right now, here's what I will say. A couple things. One is everything. I got a letter today, basically back from my letter. And when I sent him my letter yesterday, on his birthday, I explained to him that this was an opportunity for us to try to move forward and repair things and have basically a cohesive relationship. Jamie, myself, Will, if they wanted to, although I think Will is done. So that's fine. That's their decision and their boundary, and you have to respect whatever they want to do on that. Nevertheless, he calls me, leaves me a voice message. I haven't spoken to him in nearly 6 months. And then he sends me a text today. Says, I called you back and you haven't called me back. And I'm like, okay, you haven't talked to me in 6 months. I need to drop everything that I'm doing to call you back right now when I have a shit ton of things going on right now. So finally, and he said that he had a letter he was writing he was going to send. So I sent him something back along the line. Actually, let me look. I'll tell you exactly what I said to him. I can tell you all exactly. Let me pull it up.
Well, I do want to say this too. When I acknowledged Will's letter and said that I needed to seek a therapist so that I could figure out how best to handle this, and basically said to our father, if you would get a therapist, I will be 100% in support of you and I will be here for you. And then when you called me today to ask me how to handle the answer, I said, once again, tell him that it's, you know, you feel like in order for things to change, he's going to have to change, you know, basically the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I'm like,
his words, not ours.
Yeah, he said that all the time. It's not his words, but he definitely uses those words. And I encourage you to invite him to get therapy, and then he turned that on you.
Yeah. He did. He turned it. And when I told him in the letters, don't make yourself the victim, he made himself the victim. He talks about how he's been hurt. His feelings have been hurt so many times. And we can probably throw the letter up here if we need to do it. But
it's so good.
It is very good.
I want to read it dramatically the same way that I read my grandmother's Facebook posts. You know, the boomers who like to post when they like check in at the doctor's office on Facebook. I do those dramatically, and I would like to read this in a similarly soap opera dramatic fashion.
I think that might take too much time.
Honestly. I know, but eventually, maybe once I get my live stream privileges, I'll do it on like slam poetry style.
That works. Well, so this is where we stopped kind of talking. He had come up here to visit. This was around Halloween. Within his first 15 minutes of being at my house, literally 15 minutes, my 3-year-old daughter is outside playing. My wife and I are talking about stuff. And I'm talking to him about all the Kanye West stuff was going on at that point. And so he didn't know about it. So I explained to him about, Kanye West and what he had said, because, my dad is Jewish. I was going to say Jewish.
That's even
ish.
fresh.
Ish.
His blood is Jewish.
He uses the Judaism when it can be beneficial for him to say that he's Jewish.
Fair enough. So that's why I say ish. But anyway, so I explained to him this anti-Semitism that Kanye was talking about, and he proceeded to follow that up with, again, 15 feet away from my daughter, if not less, drops the N-word. And I'm like, dude, you're not doing. I said, you're not, and I immediately shut that down. I was like, you are not doing that in front of my kids. I was like, in fact, you're not doing it in front of me. I was like, that's not cool. Blah 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 blah. He proceeds to talk about how he marched for civil rights once in the 1960s. My guess is he probably really just accidentally stood in line and ended up in a parade, but I don't know.
Or he's chasing a woman.
Or is chasing a woman. That's more than likely the answer, because he's been married like 6 times. But the other thing okay, that was the first thing. And then within 5 minutes after that, he starts talking about TikTok and how his algorithm, basically how his page is all these half naked women or all these half dressed women. And I'm explaining to him that that's your algorithm. Like, if you go look at my algorithm, it does not look like that. It shows you what you want to see. So the only reason you're continuing to see half naked young girls is because you're looking at half naked young girls. And so after we bring that to him, he quickly puts his phone away, because I guess we called him out on that. And he proceeds to, okay, you have not heard this. You were, okay, Will, I don't know if I need to mute you for what I'm about to share.
How about I mute myself?
Yeah, you're going to need to be good. I'm telling you.
I don't know if it's possible.
He proceeds to continue talking about, well, basically when women dress and act that way, that they are asking essentially to be raped. Okay. He says that that's why I said, so Alyssa, my wife, gets in his face. And Alyssa, if you'd like to come on and join this chat, please feel free to do so. I will send you an invite link.
And Justin, you're the best wife. I love her. She makes up for all, she doesn't make up for it, but for all the shit you've had to endure. Like, Alyssa, I love you.
So anyway, so he says that. And so Alyssa gets up to him and is like, okay, so Victoria's 14 years old. She's on the beach in a bikini. She deserves to be, assaulted over that because she's dressed in. And so he kind of stumbles over his words, but this is not the first time he said something like that. He's talked about how women shouldn't be in the Navy for that reason. And he's talked about, Alyssa, you just need to come on. We just need to get you on here. Hold on.
Alyssa, yeah. We need that. We need
this. He has never spoken like that around me.
Yes,
and so Alyssa flew off the handle a little bit, which rightfully so. Okay, rightfully so, because let's be real. I've talked about this in lives, and essentially, the vast majority of women and girls have some kind of unwanted experience from a man. Almost everyone. It's not a story of if, it's a story of it did happen. And so, without trying to out Alyssa's story, I will just say that she is no different. She had experiences with people. Sorry, Alyssa texted me. I'm trying to say back. She's like, can I do audio only because she's in bed? Sorry. And I did to the chat. And so she came back and Potter said, you know what? It's going to be so much better when this generation's basically gone. Is what she said. The world's going to be better because, which was brutal.
Alyssa, I love you so much. Alyssa, doing the Lord's work.
She's coming in a second. So hold on. So anyway, so that was a conversation that we had, but let's take it back a little bit further, because this was the final catalyst. Well, second to final catalyst, because we had phone calls, and there was one that I hung up on him, and it was basically over politics. And for those, Will and Jamie know how I lean, but you guys know that I keep it, at least for my TikTok, completely. I don't let y'all know how I lean, but my point is that he is so incredibly like
it's not political. It's just
you know what? Yeah, you're right. You know what? You're right. It's not political.
Mom,
It's
nope.
No. I was gonna say that I defend him and I say, you know, he's on the spectrum and I defend him, and Justin will say, but bigotry and racism and misogyny have nothing to do with the spectrum.
I am neurodivergent. The majority of people that I interact with are autistic and have ADHD, and I know I personally have gotten in so much trouble because I say so much shit that I shouldn't say. Being neurodiverse is not an excuse to be an asshole. And if anybody uses that, like, oh, I'm autistic, I can say this. No, it's not.
No. Any type of spectrum scenario does not mean if you're autistic or whatever, you know, somebody is, that doesn't make you racist, misogynistic, transphobic, homophobic, or bigoted in any way, shape, or form. And you know, the older he's gotten, the worse it's gotten. And
which happens, I work with an aging population. That's quite common for people who are aging, is that their personality is just magnified. That's absolutely true. Hi, Alyssa.
Hey, can you all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna put headphones in. So
Slay.
This could end up being a podcast in and of itself.
Did you just say slay, Will?
I see slay. Slay is like the third most used word out of my mouth.
Your generation.
Oh yeah, no, I feel very Gen Z right now. I don't usually emanate this much Gen Z energy, but I don't have my trans flag in the background. I am wearing a very, I don't usually dress this Gen Z, but I feel like I gotta really speak for my generation right now, you know? Even
well,
though
that's actually how this all started, Justin, was that I was like so grateful that you could mediate between me and Will, because I am Gen X, Will is Gen Z, and you are the millennial, and you like speak both.
Yep.
I'm also a cusper, so.
You're what?
I'm also a cusper. Give me
you are
some
cusper. Yep. You're between millennial and I'm between Gen X and millennial, and your mom's between Boomer and Gen X.
Mom,
I'm 5 years younger than a Boomer. He just says it to make me mad.
Mom, no, he's not saying it to make you mad. You are culturally, socially on the cusp of.
Yeah, I mean, 1 year does
5 years is not on the cusp.
Mom, stop.
Okay, we're not going to have this conversation.
This is irrelevant. So it's irrelevant. We'll all agree. We'll all agree to agree that Jamie's on the cusp. So anyway, so let me back this up a little bit further. So he, everything that he does is attached to money. Okay. He what he does or he doesn't do, he ties it back to something that's either money or money related, as a monetary value. And so it could be anything from, hey, you're going to this place, I want to stay at your hotel or Airbnb for free. And this was one of the things that apparently kind of started this too. So we took Victoria for her first time down to Disney and told him he could come up. My grandmother, who at the time was 88, she is now 90. And my aunt were coming there to watch Victoria. So, you know, Alyssa and I could, you know, play. Oh, by the way, it was also Alyssa and I's 10-year anniversary. Yeah. So, so they were coming down to basically watch. And my grandmother is my mom's mother, does not like my father. That's just how that is. You know, they actually even went out to lunch and, you know, he started speaking. You know, my grandmother has no relationship with my mother, not because of my grandmother's fault. It's because of my mom doesn't want to have a relationship with her, even though, but that we're not here to talk about that tonight.
There's a whole playlist on his TikTok page about his mother.
That's true. And some on YouTube. I think there's a lot of them are on YouTube as well. But anyway, so that was one of the reasons. And so he wanted to stay either in our hotel room or our Airbnb. And I was like, no, because who am I going to piss off? The 88-year-old or the 76-year-old, and I'm not going to piss off the 88-year-old, especially because again, with my mom's whole loyalty thing, I had not seen my grandmother in pretty much 12 years, except for time prior to that. And, the fact that she's now just turned 90, I'm lucky to still have her. I'm grateful to still have her, but, I wasn't gonna piss her off, but so he's been pissed off at that, and he's been holding a grudge, and that hurts his feelings. Then on my birthday, he calls and starts a whole fight. And by the way, one of my favorite parts of the letter, Will, that I don't know if you saw this. So Jamie and I, so for my 40th and her 50th, we didn't get card. I think she ended up getting a card when I told him he needed to do it, but I never got anything. And I just wanted to be thought about, right? And so he calls me to start a fight on my birthday. But then in the letter that he wrote tonight, you and your sisters never sent him cards. And it's just like, I don't know if you call it that.
My sister is 15. She just turned 15.
I know.
I want to ask him, like, we never sent him gifts. I'm like, what gift did you want me to send you? I really want, like, what gift was I supposed to send you? I made, we made him art, like the kids do. You make it.
Yeah.
What gifts, what card you got? Thank you cards. I don't know what would you want from a child, please? Like that's not the responsibility of a grandparent.
Well, I mean, and I would have them send recordings to him, you know what I mean? And
every year
mugs, with their pictures or, whatever. So I was, and even for his 75th birthday during COVID, I organized a family slideshow and Zoom call, which I think I had to drag. I don't think Will was on it. But
I was. And I showed up intentionally to spite him and be mean. And I was.
But anyway, and then got nothing on my 50th.
But you eventually got a card when I told him he should send you a card.
Oh, in May, right? When you turned 40 and he did nothing for you.
He called me to start a fight, is what he did.
Oh, that's right.
He called me.
And Hillary, I have to tell you, my brother is really one of the kindest, sweetest people, and he just does it to sibling rivalry, which we didn't grow up getting to have.
She didn't get her sibling rivalry, so she's enjoying
right.
the.
And in fairness, there's really nothing wrong with me that he can pick on. So he has to, just dig on the fact that I'm 13 years older than he is.
Mom, how about you don't do this on the topic of narcissistic parents?
Oh,
how about you don't say that?
That's
I think that it's okay to justify that we're just picking and that everyone is welcome in this. So, and I hope that people feel that way. And for everybody, I'm going to pause real quick for the TikTok people who are coming in like, what the hell is going on? So I am on YouTube Live right now because my nephew is apparently permabanned from TikTok Live, where we would have done it here. And we have a live, basically we're talking a little bit. And when the live is over, if I'm still awake, we will talk about all of the current events and true crime and stuff. But for now, we're talking about narcissistic and emotionally immature parents. So if you want to hop over to YouTube, links in my bio. Also, Justin on TikTok is the YouTube channel. So feel free to hop over there because that's kind of what we're talking about. And if you want to know from the beginning, the cool thing about YouTube is you can actually go back and rewind.
It's juicy tea too. It's juicy as hell.
Yeah. No, we're not. Like I said, Wesley, we are going to, there's no true crime talk, at least at the moment. When this topic is done, then I will go to, I will talk about true crime after we finish this. So anyways, that said, Alyssa, why don't you come in with some of the other things he has said over the years to kind of really put this into perspective?
Are you talking about like recent?
Yeah, you got some static, so you might want to take your one or two of your headphones out. I'm sorry.
Oh,
yeah, recent. Well, it doesn't have to be recent. It is what it is.
Is this better? Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know you guys.
No, not better. Sorry.
I'll take them out. Well, if I take them out all together,
that's much better.
Mm-hmm.
Better.
Yeah, much
Is that better?
I can mute my mic so they won't hear you.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to echo. That's what I was concerned about. So recently you guys talked about the Kanye West thing, and then what really pushed me over the edge was the sexual abuse, or not abuse, excuse me, like assault, and how it was warranted based on what a woman was wearing. And like it just like flipped a switch. I know Jamie's probably heard this story like 10 times, but with my 3-year-old daughter standing there after he had just said, the N word, which is not something we say in our house, and then proceeds to say how a woman or anyone is asking for it based on what they're wearing, I was just like, oh my gosh. So I started giving all of these examples about, like Justin said, what if Victoria is a teenager on the beach and in a bikini? What if, your current wife is wearing leggings at the gym? Like these are the scenarios that you're saying is okay. And it just kind of got heated. And then I said the whole thing about like, it'll be better when this generation, when yes, I shouldn't have probably said that. I should have worded it differently and not been as angry, but I was very, very heated in that moment. And this is coming off of years of hearing stuff like this. How
Well,
I know.
I'll interrupt you for a second. Can I just say,
Mhm.
too, because I know that some of the people who are from the baby boomer generation didn't feel welcome with this. Let me explain. Our father is actually silent, Jen. So
Correct.
if that makes you feel a little
Mhm.
better on that, he's actually
Mhm.
silent.
Yeah. And again, I could have said it better. I was very, very angry in the moment
Well,
because it really hit home.
and to use a Gen Z term, you were triggered, and you were in your amygdala brain, and so that makes complete sense to have.
Yeah, and you gotta think this all happened, we hadn't even gotten the house yet. We were still in the driveway, and Justin and I were already kinda stressed about this trip because him and Justin had been fighting so much more over, like, political things. Um,
Well, I think we determined that it wasn't political as much as it was just bigotry, misogyny, and
yeah,
racism.
It's hard
yeah.
to be around him. I mean, it's you do have to sort of brace for impact, and that's part of the reason that I've struggled is that my kids haven't wanted to be around him.
I get that. I mean, I don't know if Justin brought up the bestiality comments, which I always thought was such a weird
I'm sorry,
thing.
what the fuck?
If you can't tell, the answer to that question is no.
I don't know if he
Your
just
father made bestiality comments?
I don't think that he was like
He
meaning anything by it, but when we lived in Texas, he probably told me over the course of us living in Texas 10 times about how bestiality was legal there and how we should go to a farm. And I think he was just making
he
weird
was yeah,
jokes.
that's
No, you don't make that comment many times when it's just a joke. And I say that as somebody who's like, I would totally make jokes about things to cover my own ass. You don't make jokes that many times when it's a joke.
I tell myself it's just a really weird sense of humor. That's what I
yeah,
told myself.
syndrome.
And I'm like, "Okay, but, you said it a lot. That's okay." But, that's just, like, one of the weird things. But I mean, I don't wanna know. I don't even want my brain to go down that path, so I'm not gonna let it. But the other one that we fought about multiple times was the military, and him saying females in the military should not be allowed because men cannot control themselves, and a female in the military is basically just asking for whatever they get. And we had that argument. I can think of, I mean, I know Justin, you were in the argument with us. Like, I mean, they weren't like yelling arguments. They were like civil, but I look back now and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, I can't believe I was ever as calm as I was, because now I'd be like, "What?"
Alyssa, why did I seriously have to ask, why did you let him come back?
Um, okay, so I am coming off of a very crazy dynamic with Justin's parents, and him compared to his mom wasn't that bad. And so I just dealt with it because it was so much easier than dealing with his mom. I was like, I can handle this. It's only for a couple of days. It was to the point, and I remember talking to Jamie about this when we all first started talking, like when he would come visit. He would make so many comments about Justin's weight, and Justin's not overweight. Um, I don't know if Justin ever felt this way, but I was always very uncomfortable about eating around him because he'd always comment like what I was eating, what size I was. I remember one time when we were in South Padre Island, he would like hold up these bathing suits on me and tell me, I don't remember what girlfriend it was at the time, but he was like, "Yeah, I think she could wear this, but she's probably a size smaller." And I'm like, "What?" Like, even if she is, like, that hurt my feelings, you know? But that's whatever. That's just me being, I guess, sensitive, but things like that. But all of that was still better than what we went through with his mom. So I didn't want Justin to not have any parents in his life. And I was used to just kind of standing by and letting them do whatever, you know?
And also, Alyssa, I would say this too. Like I remember that, prior to you, Justin, did listen to whatever his mom said and did,
Mhm.
and then it was when she started really attacking you that he, actually broke off his relationship.
Was even more Victoria, actually.
No,
I
it
should have
wasn't
told her
me.
if it was for Alyssa, it should have been done many, many, many years prior to that. It was Victoria that
Mhm.
that made it happen, because what happened with the situation with that situation was that um, we told her that we were expecting Victoria, and this was coming off of a pregnancy loss and coming off probably one of the worst years either one of us have ever had. Then coming back after, even the Christmas, which was the last time I saw her, it was such an awkward thing. Um, and I don't even know how to describe that, but nevertheless, it was I just told her we're expecting a kid and she wants nothing to do with it. And she basically cut me off. And as a lot of y'all have heard this story many times, um, normally the dynamic was she'd cut me off. I'd apologize and grovel for her to be like, no, we'll work it out. And last time I didn't. And we went no contact. And I do want to address it. Somebody asking this on YouTube, and I would encourage anybody on TikTok, but I would encourage anybody on the YouTube side or the TikTok side, if y'all have questions for us, it's, post a comment, put who you want to answer the question, whether it's
I'm monitoring the TikTok comments as well.
Do what?
I'm monitoring TikTok comments as well. I also just made a second TikTok account because the comments peer pressured me into doing it.
Yeah, I saw that. So to answer your question, what Batstone asked, which is how do you protect your kids from that? I'm sorry anyone has to deal with that. Well, what you have to do to protect your kids from that kind of stuff is you have to go no contact. I mean, or set very, very strict and very firm boundaries, because having a little girl, I don't want her to grow up with somebody who's supposed to be a parental or grandparent type figure, thinking it's okay to be misogynistic and that girls are less than because of that. That's just not something I'm going to accept, because I don't believe that. So anyway, and I would say anybody who is on the TikTok side still, if you'd like to see the full conversation with pictures and video, jump to the YouTube side and please subscribe, because I'm trying to grow that anyways. But if y'all have any questions, seriously, dress who they want them to, and we can make sure that we answer all of them.
And I would also say, Justin, like to the point that I made in the beginning, that I didn't recognize it as abuse until you started showing me, hey, this is abuse. This isn't normal. You got to see the in and out of our father and the way he treated my kids, not speaking to them for several years. And you're like, this is not acceptable for my child.
This man also cut me out when I was 8 years old.
8. You were not trans. You were not gay. You were not.
I was not trans. I was not gay. He was upset that I did not call his girlfriend. I was 8.
Yeah.
That's so messed up.
Who's the emotionally immature one here?
I was 8.
I
didn't call his girlfriend.
Yeah, but here's the thing though about it. He's been married multiple times. He's had multiple girlfriends. The thing is, I try not. He's been with this one for a long time. I'll give him that. But not. He's been, according to his letter, 8 years. But
that's true, because he started with her right after I separated from my ex, and yes, so the timing, it is 8 years.
Oh, 8 years. But the thing is, it's like, and his current wife is fine. She's very nice. She's. We know the situation. We know what it is, but she's very nice.
She is pleasant.
Yeah, she's very pleasant. And I mean, she has. No, I'm not going to say that next part. But
no, don't say it. Don't go below the belt.
I want to go below the belt. I have no
No.
boundaries. Okay.
No.
Anyways, so it's just he's like, why, you don't call her on her birthday. You don't do this. He's obsessed with doing that, but he doesn't do anything.
No, I'm sorry, Janelle, Jamie is his sister.
But I am 12 years older, and you can be an aunt that's 12 years older.
Yeah, okay, continue.
Will's going to give you so much shit for that later.
I'm having so much fun. Thanks, Janelle.
So, and by the way, happy birthday, Tammy. So I'm saying to know if there's mental issues, not diagnosed. Not diagnosed. Well, the thing is, okay, so the dad definitely needs therapy. So that's one of the things. So we've gone through this whole thing, and Jamie and I kind of decided basically that. And by the way, I have a full brother, and Jamie's half brother. Yeah. Who basically he and our father didn't talk for 13 years, and now the relationship is very, very, very superficial. In fact, when he comes to town, he usually does. Our father would usually go to see his kids, and my ex-sister-in-law would invite them, and Jason would typically just leave. He just wouldn't show up. Jason just wouldn't show up, and that's kind of the dynamic. So one of the things that I pointed out to him was I was trying to be nice, but I said, look, we all have our shortcomings. Your feelings, Jamie and my feelings are just as valid as your feelings. We'd like to go through so Jamie and I have the same dad, and my brother and I have the same mom and dad. Jason and I have the same, both parents. We're full brothers. And basically, I forgot where I was going with this, but AD, I got distracted by the question. This happens to me all the time.
Yeah, no, I like having people talking to us. It's fun.
Yeah, I love the YouTube setup. It's really great. You can do and show a lot more. But yeah, so he's talking about the whole, I can't remember. So he's talking about this whole situation, and it's really only his feelings are valid. But here's the thing. You have to understand that this man has such a sense of, I don't even know what you'd call it. He's so, Alyssa, what's the word we would use?
Self-inflated.
He thinks he is the best thing that's ever happened, period.
Yeah. So like, he cooks a steak. It's the best steak it's the best steak in the world. He makes baked beans. He should bottle and can them because they're the best baked beans in the world. He makes a pastrami. It's better than Carnegie's in New York. He makes whatever he makes. It's the absolute best. And he created this product, which is never going to go anywhere because he can't get out of his own way.
Even say the name of it. Don't even say the name of it.
I'm not, but he can't get out of his own way. He then writes a book to go with the product. The book makes no sense. He then goes on Amazon to promote the book with his name there as the author and as the commenter, saying that he's reading the book to me as a 40-year-old, and I like it better than Dr. Zeus with a Z.
Dr. Zeus. And then he
thinks it's better than Dr. Zeus.
He also said that he was a better pilot than Maverick.
I was a better pilot.
He was a better pilot than
Top Gun.
Top Gun.
I don't know what Top Gun is. I am the Top Gun.
Yeah, I mean that's essentially how the conversation went. And then apparently the letter that he wrote today, and I didn't tell you this, well, I called Jamie back a little while ago before we did this and talked to her, but the way that letter was written to me, it seems like either he was looking to write it to put in a memoir or to try to put it on TikTok to do his own version of let me try to cancel my son and daughter. Which believe me, that letter would not have gone the way he hoped it would.
No, but you know what? The reason why, like, it's even a thing that like, I mean, I personally have considered like using I have 50,000 followers, like going public about it. I threatened him when I wrote my letter, was like, if you get my mother involved, which he did, I will be, giving him a proper Gen Z cancellation on TikTok, even though that's bullshit. Between you and me, those aren't real. But the reason why that's even a thing is because he cares more about the followings that Justin and I have than what we would actually have to say. The only way to actually get him to listen would be if other people made him or her. Yes.
And I also want to circle back just because, like, for people who are watching, or paying attention, what is it that can be gained, in this conversation? Because here I am, the mother, trying to come in and, I agree, Justin, someone said, and I agree, and I've said this to you before, like, I'm so proud of you because, I mean, can I use the F word?
Please.
Yeah.
Yes. Permission.
we came from a fucked up situation. Like, and for us and you, and you're such a good dad, and your marriage with Alyssa is so good. I'm so proud of you, and that, you know, you don't have to accept what you are given and just say it. Like our father, for instance, perfect example. When I would try to complain about my childhood, or especially before I realized that I was abused by him, but abused by, you know, your mom, Justin, his answer to me was, you know, get over it. You didn't lose your dad when you were 13 years old. And, you know,
sorry, go ahead. I want to
no,
circle back to what you said. So somebody in here asked, I think that you might have made a good segue, but I don't want to interrupt you with it. Somebody asked what his childhood was like, and I think that I think to be fair to this situation, we should kind of explain what his childhood was like.
Because he uses it to his advantage all the time, even though he's 78.
But there are parts of it that he doesn't use that are just part of it. He'll use like his naval stuff, and he'll use his, you know,
the photo he still uses for everything is a grainy photo of him in the military years.
The part of me that makes this hard, because again, we've agreed, all of us agree, he is not evil. Even you will say he's not evil.
No, he's selfish.
And but also, in fairness, his parents had him. His parents had him.
I want to do this because I want to do this. Can I do it?
Your show.
So our father is what is known as a change of life baby. For those of y'all who don't know what that term means, basically what it means is that his parents had him much later in life. What year was Phyllis born? Like 26?
She was 17 years older than he was born in 45. She was 17 years older than him. I'm gonna go. Huh?
So 17 years. So he was born in 45. So that's 28. She was born in 28. Okay. And his brother was born. So he, you know, so this is what you're talking about. His brother is, I forget how many years, but he was born in 45. His parents were already in their 40s when he was born. So to give you guys perspective, I am 40, and my grandfather was born his dad was born in 1898, and his mother in 1903. So they were already old when they had him. And I think that they were worn out, but they were from New York. They moved down to Florida when he was fairly young. They owned stores. They were very well-to-do. But they shipped him off to boarding schools and stuff like that. And then, like we mentioned earlier, his father passed away when he was 13, I believe, of a stroke. And his mother later, when he was in the Navy, of cancer. I think that he probably, in all fairness, is emotionally stunted at about 13 because of that. So I think that's kind of the background that is important to know. And from that, I don't know how he's formed himself into where he is, but I think that there are some situations where you need to sit back and realize, hey, the common denominator is me. So in his case, multiple failed marriages. You know, again, I said earlier, everything is about money. He did not go. This is actually a completely different story that's kind of fun that I've talked about a little bit. His sister was worth in the 8-digit range. Did you not know this? Do you know where the money came from?
No.
Oh.
She made art, but I didn't know.
You what?
She made art. I don't think she made money from that. No. Oh my God, where'd the money come from?
Drugs.
Yes! That's so fucking cool.
They made their money on drugs. And anyways, when she died, she didn't leave my father anything. So he didn't go. I'll tell you the whole story later. The thing is, we couldn't tell the story until after Eric died, because Eric is incredibly dangerous. And so anyways, he didn't leave him any money, so he didn't go to her funeral over that. It's like everything comes down to money, unfortunately. So, and everybody who's following me on TikTok, thank you guys so much for the follows. If y'all want to jump over to YouTube, because we have the 4 people there, same name, link in bio. And feel free to subscribe if you want. But it's a good conversation tonight. And then after this is all done, we can talk about true crime.
It's worth the app switch, I swear.
It is worth the app switch for sure. Even if it's just for tonight, even if you don't subscribe, which you should, but even if you don't, you should. But anyway, so we can talk about the drug money later. Actually, at one point they offered him, I think in the 70s, $25,000 a flight to go down to Columbia, because he could fly. He was a pilot, to fly down to Columbia to pick up things. He did not do it. Jamie, your mom is getting off, but yes, we can continue and then do a part 2. He did not do it. He thought he was, by the way, though, he thought they wanted him to go down to Colombia to pick up marijuana. And I said,
oh, it was weed? That's boring.
No, you don't go to Colombia for that. And you don't get $25,000 a flight for pot.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's a different story. We can get down to that. I can tell you.
Oh my gosh, my family's so fun. Why after the boring one?
Yeah, it's well, we couldn't talk about the story until again after Eric died, because Eric, literally his business partners would disappear. People talk about they would disappear. So
that is the coolest shit I've ever heard.
Well, I'm glad that you like it. So who got it? So who got the money? She left it to, rightfully so, Carrie. She left her money to her children and her grandchildren.
Not to him.
Not to him, because and so he didn't, yes, Matt. Yes. Everyone on this screen is related to me. Wife, nephew, and sister, although my sister, I think, is not coming back. So we can just, you know what we can do? Here's what we can do. We can go ahead and we will, I don't want to kick her from the studio.
Kick her from the studio.
All right. We'll remove her. There we go. So, anyway, so this is this is basically, the situation that we're in. It's very frustrating. I don't think I'm going to throw up the whole letter, but I will read excerpts from it.
I would throw it up and then still read parts of it. Let people.
Yeah,
And I also would read the very last sentence, because to me that speaks the loudest.
Yeah, let's go. Huh?
He intended it to speak the loudest. It's in all caps.
Yeah.
It is all caps. It is all in all caps. So he said in all caps, quote, "I don't want to become attached to my children and grandchildren and be hurt ever again. It's not worth the pain." So let me tell you what that translates into.
The letter was written by him, for those who are new.
Yes.
This is all, we're talking about this now because this drama surrounding the narc parent, him, has come to a head in that he wrote a response letter from my point of view to Justin and kind of to all of us. And this was the final line of that letter.
Yeah, this was the final line of that letter.
That he wrote.
And this is the thing. This is, okay, I don't know how many of y'all are in here. If y'all want to show of hands or comments or whatever. I don't know how many of y'all are parents. But I'm a parent. Jamie's a parent. She's no longer here anymore, but
I'm a parent. He's right there.
Anyway, so
pet parents count.
Yeah, I love Monty.
But a pet's not going to cause you the pain that he's referring to. But my point is if you're a parent, is there anything that your child can do that would make them not worth it? Because to me, the answer to that is no. No. Yes, right here. The answer to that is no. There's nothing that my daughter could do to make her not worth it to me. And I know that Jamie and Will's sisters, they all have their challenges, but there is still nothing that Jamie would not do for her kids, no matter what.
And I can speak to that as I'm trans. Spoiler alert.
I'm not going to tell that's
well,
not.
No, I'm trans, and obviously that has not been the easiest thing for my family, as I can say candidly. But as many issues as I have had with my family since coming out, my mom, I know, still loves me. And as limited as she is, I know that my mom is trying and, cares for me. Yeah. And I recognize that even though she did keep him around for as long as she did, I know that she still loves me, and I know that it wasn't done out of malice. So to any parents in there who, are just learning what narc parents are and are realizing things about certain relationships, I want you to feel like you can forgive yourself, because that's just so important.
You have a question.
Oh, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it? TikTok or here?
Oh,
does my grandfather accept me? Fuck no, he doesn't. What do you think, Janelle?
I knew you tried to answer that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, of course he doesn't accept me. I said this earlier, but I came out to him when I was 13 as bi, just to piss him off, because it's what I do. I have nothing to lose. And he went on a tangent about why gay people shouldn't adopt. And obviously, I mean, I haven't spoken to him since actively transitioning. I've been in the I came out when I was going into 9th grade, then went back in the closet for 7 years, only came back out about 3 years ago. But I haven't spoken to him since then. But in this letter that I wrote, I obviously used my chosen name. And I did, one of the arguments that I did use is that I was more of a man than he would ever be. But of course he didn't read that far. And although he did, you know, save his own face, use my name, big shocker, congrats. He did in this letter perpetually call me his granddaughter. And
what gender do you throw?
Yeah, and he also, if you do look on his TikTok, he just posted an extremely transphobic ad. He's a piece of shit. Yeah, no. How old am I? Yeah, it's bullshit. It's very like whatever he has done to remotely show support has just been to save his own face in the very, very most base.
Or to comply to social norms or what he knows that Jamie and I won't accept.
Yeah, I mean, and even like my mom is again limited. She's not bad. She's trying. But you know, even she like would not tolerate that, and he knows not to do that bare minimum. Great for him. But you know, I think that's how the majority of people who are anti-trans are. Unfortunately, is they just don't. They're just not vocal about it because they know better.
Yeah. Somebody said, I want to say something. Somebody said in here, I think a couple of good things. On TikTok, somebody said, not at all. One daughter. We may not agree 100, but we always stand together no matter what. And that's how it's supposed to be. When you have a child, you're supposed to be there and love them unconditionally. Our father does not love us unconditionally. Part of the issue too was that this company, which I won't name the name, that he's trying to do, that he's been trying to do.
Even if you name it, they won't be able to find it because he can't do marketing for it.
Well, that's fair. His marketing makes no sense. He wants me to use my platform to promote this product. And I half-ass offered to do it for like just a small, tiny bit cut of the profits, but then I wasn't really serious because I wasn't going to do it anyways. So and the reason for that is not because I don't want his product to succeed, especially then. If it succeeds, you know, great. But, you know, so similarly to his sister, he's made it very clear that wife number 6 is getting 100% of everything. And if that's the case, that's the case, whatever. I'm not going to begrudge him over that.
For context, for those who are joining, I guess I've been asked this. I am 22. I am Justin's nephew. I am the first grandchild that he's had.
Yes.
I'm the only one to be a full-fledged adult.
Yes. Yes, exactly. So now my ADD got stuck. I forget what was I talking about?
You were talking about...
Thank you. Alyssa, what was I talking about?
Alyssa, help us.
You were talking about...
yeah, there you go. Okay. So I got it. I'm back on track. Yeah, he's been married 6 times. So basically, you know, it was, you know, I didn't really, you know, want to do this. And the biggest reason I didn't want to do his advertising for this thing is one, is everything he had done along the way that I gave him advice on, he completely ignored. But 2, I'll just be very candid. I told him that he needed to stop posting the way he was posting on Facebook. And the reason for that was that it was so incredibly...
It's QAnon. It's QAnon shit.
QAnon, yeah, well, yeah, QAnon and bigotry and racism.
QAnon, except he tries to back it with like false logic. Like he genuinely believes he's smart and adding to the conversation.
But it's not. And I told him that he needed to stop, but he literally cannot help himself. But the point is I don't want to tie my brand, because no matter how it is, this company might have a brand, but when you're talking about social media and you're talking about people who have followings like I have or like Will has, you have your own personal brand. Speaking of, I don't know if you ever got to the stuff today, but you, Will, I'll let you go to the avatar and stuff today. But nevertheless,
I'm going to just spam the TikTok chat with my ad again.
Okay. But I'm talking about the stuff you're supposed to be making for me. You can put the TikTok to your TikTok. Well, actually, their TikTok name is what their name here is on YouTube. And Alyssa's as well. So, anyway, so that was part of it too. It's like I didn't want my personal brand with me. You to share his TikTok with y'all.
Okay. Guys, I have a plan, but if we're gonna do it, we need to all be on the same page. Okay. I'm a middle school teacher. I'm gonna talk to you like I talk to my middle schoolers. All right. So if we give you his TikTok, you have to be really like stupid. Or just like unfollow, like just mass report, unfollow is what I would probably recommend. Mass report, unfollowing. He doesn't need to know that we're doing this. It's not going to benefit anyone. So don't tell him that we sent you, because it's just not going to help anyone. His TikTok is Navy Wingman.
All right, well, there it is.
So you'll find it if you scroll on Justin's account long enough. Oops.
You can because I had to block him after what he did. So he's blocked on my account. Yeah,
he's blocked on mine too. But
I blocked him too.
I tried to create a video trying to tear me down and made comments trying to tear me down, and it did not go well. No, the video and comments, and it didn't work the way that he wanted to.
Yeah, no, he's really forgetting that his audience came from you, which is really cute.
Don't I think he will watch this? I don't think he'll watch YouTube, but if he does, then he does.
Plus, the big issue that we've been having with him is that he doesn't want to hear any of it.
So he won't listen to it anyways, especially.
Again, I wrote him this 6-page letter that I'm really, really proud of. It's the point where like I want to actually put it in a memoir, because it took me like 2 months to write it, and it really was a therapeutic thing for me. Didn't read a word of it, but I still wanted to, because like, but still like, if he's known that when you even talk to him on the phone, he'll hang up on you. And so I'm trying to figure out where I was even at. I'm trying to, but yeah, he doesn't want to hear anything he doesn't want to hear. And so even if he did find this live stream, he'd skim it a little bit, and then he would maybe remember one thing and spin it to be anti him. He'd take away mostly that. I'd say he'd probably claim we're trying to cancel him, or fucking whatever, or triggered snowflakes. But he wouldn't. He doesn't care. Nothing that anyone says is going to change his mind at this point.
No,
you're exactly right. Well, 100%.
And as Rosa said, at 78, forget about him changing. Yeah, he's not going to change. You're right. But here's the thing: it's not even about him changing at this point. The thing, Jamie's not here anymore, so she can't talk about it. Alyssa, you're loud, or so one of y'all's loud over there. I don't know which one it is, but
Alyssa, tell me.
Okay, there it goes. So the thing about it is, Jamie, is 50. She just turned 53, right? Yeah. So her entire life, he has never put his children above any of his spouses ever. And my mother, when she was Jamie's stepmother, long before I was even born, was incredibly, incredibly abusive. When I say abusive, I'm talking about like, I mean, I have story time lists on here and on TikTok. And how many kids has he abandoned? Is he close to any of them? He has 3 kids, and he's not necessarily abandoned per se, but he's not. Jamie and I, my brother really doesn't do anything. Jamie and I were the closest, but that over the last few years has been coming as he's been becoming more and more unhinged. I get what you're saying, as it becomes more and more unhinged, it's getting worse. And Carrie asks, let me see what you asked, Carrie. Lars, it's hard to go back and do a recap on all this. If you would like to, I'm not trying to be okay. Yeah, they told you. I don't want to rewind. You can rewind and do it on YouTube. My husband, I think, keeps hoping his dad will change, which is why I asked. I try to understand, but his dad is such an ass. I don't get it. Yeah, they're not going to change.
And unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do to make
it's not you.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I say that as someone who has hated this man since the day I was born. I hate this man. I've hated him for 22 years, and I was not allowed to. And a big issue for me is that my mother would not accept it. She would not think he was her hero. Even in adulthood, she wanted his attention. She wanted his affection. And
so much so that, hold on, I'm going to interrupt you. Much so that Will's sister they got to choose basically the birthday for, I guess it was, I don't know if it's scheduled C-section or induction, but
No, she was being induced.
Okay, being induced. And she, when given the choice of dates, she chose his birthday because her whole life, it's the typical abused child thing. They were trying to, trying to get some type of like, I feel valued, I feel loved. He's listening to my, to listen to her, and she's been trying to do that her entire life.
And I grew up watching that. And I also, my father is a narcissist to an extent, and she married a guy like her father, and they divorced. But it was I spent a lot of my life seeing her be taken advantage of by these people and being treated poorly. And regardless of what I said, didn't help. And so in regards to my grandfather, her father, watching him actively take advantage of her and abuse her as she's in her 50s, I feel like it was kind of my responsibility to protect her, given that she still won't protect herself. She still wants him.
She's struggling with it. And to answer your question, Elle, how are you able to let go of hope and the is what it is attitude? I hold on. So I'll tell you. So for my mother, it was having a child. It was my daughter, and it was like this little girl who's not even born yet. She wants nothing to do with her. And then when Victoria came as a preemie, nothing to do with it. No calls. When my wife almost died, nothing. With my father, it's a little bit different because my mom is very, very vindictive, like meaning that like, she is a malignant narcissist. She will destroy you. And she used to be very capable of doing it. Not so much anymore, but she used to be very capable of doing it. Very intelligent, very likable. If you met her, you would love her till you got to know her really well. And my father's kind of this. My father's not a I saw 1128 video. He says his son has thousands of followers. Yeah, at the time I did. Yeah, we'll come back to that. But anyway, so Jamie was very much abused by my mother. And when I say that, like I'm talking about things like when okay, so like a little
I don't want that shared.
You don't want that? Well, she shared it.
I know, just obviously.
She shared it on TikTok.
Sure what she shared, just
All right. Well, anyways, I'll say this. One of the things, to give you an example, that my mom did is she would like put cigarettes out on her. Okay. And my father would come home and I don't know what he saw, he didn't. I don't know how he couldn't have seen it, but never did anything to stop it. So even though he might not have doled out any punishments or physical abuse himself, he didn't stop what was happening simply for the fact that he would put his wife over. Yeah, Jamie's mom still, yeah. And Will and her sisters and Jamie have a great relationship with her mom. Right? Is that, or am I confusing it? I'll have a good relationship with Vicky.
I don't really want.
You don't want to talk about it? Okay.
No, that.
Cool. Okay. Answer is yes. They're still around. Okay.
It's a relationship.
We will respect boundaries.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's one of those. Yeah, I don't know where I go, but and I want to say this too before I go, because somebody says it's a hard cycle to break, and that's one of the reasons we're having this live. Is I think that one is we've been talking all day today over the last several days over the situation, and one of the reasons I decided I wanted to do this live is I feel like Jamie and Will deserve an outlet on it too, and I think having a live like this, it isn't sitting here like a let's just use this live to bash my father, her grandfather. That's not what this is. What this really is it's more of an educational type thing, because there are a lot of people who are in these types of situations who don't realize that it's toxic. And so when I used to do narcissistic content exclusively, we would talk about these things because it's they're learning opportunities. And so, like a lot of y'all who are in here who are asking questions about certain things that are going on, and, your husband's a narcissist, I'm in this relationship, oh, I've seen this. It's kind of to help point out the signs and what it does, certain behaviors do to the people involved. So for example, Jamie, my sister, tried so hard for her life to force relationships with her children and our father. And I tried to force a relationship between my mother.
Relationship
and my wife. Yeah, and it strained their relationship, and you can see how what might have at one point been an apathetic relationship between our father and Will has now become a seething hatred because of what Will's had to endure.
I do. Back to the educational thing. It's not so much. I mean, it's more so, at least for me, as a Gen Z, speaking to people. I'm assuming this audience is primarily people, who are not as informed and not as like eager to cut people off more with the traditional family values. Like honor your parents. If it's not physical, it's okay. What's important is acknowledging that all abuse is abuse. All abuse is valid, and nobody is entitled to your time or your energy. And if you have children, they are not entitled to your fucking children. Self-respect is something that I feel we have so little of, especially in regards to parents who think, so much is tied to them in terms of how we view ourselves. And I think that it's a matter of enabling ourselves and acknowledging what this behavior is, and empowering ourselves to acknowledge that A, this happens to other people, and B, you are worth more than it. There are people in this world who will not treat you like shit and who are worth your time. And it's taken, sometimes it takes people longer to realize that, but it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you a toxic relative to cut people out. You're not failing anybody. You're certainly not failing yourself. And I feel like that shitty mentality surrounding cutting relatives off needs to end.
I do think it needs to be normalized a little bit more. And the thing about it is here's the thing: if you endured abuse, no matter what kind, like physical, sexual, emotional, mental abuse, whatever it was, it's not your fault. You did nothing wrong. And even if it wasn't something physical or sexual, it's still abuse. For example, here's something that my mom did to my brother. So my brother, like a lot of tweens when he was in that age group, young teens, was a little heavy. And so my mom used to padlock the refrigerator. That is abuse. Okay. That wasn't anything that physically hurt him. It wasn't, but it was still abuse. And so it's number one, it's not your fault. And somebody just here said this, and on the TikTok side, I can relate. I have a narcissistic mother, who decided to cut her off altogether. And to make the decision for a child to cut off the parent, it's not an all of a sudden knee-jerk reaction. It usually takes years to get to that point. And you try everything that you can to make it so it doesn't get to that point. And somebody said that is not abuse. May I? Hold on. Lori, locking somebody out of a refrigerator and depriving them food is 1000% abuse. If somebody did that, CPS would come do a house visit, and they would take your children away from you for doing that. It is 1000% abuse. Not only is it abuse because if your parents Lori, yeah, if your parents fat shamed you and body shamed you, which is what that is, yes, that is abuse.
It is unfortunately a thing. As someone who was raised female, with someone who was raised with body image issues, it's a thing. And I know that a lot of parents really genuinely do it out of concern, especially in like older times. I know we now know that it's not something we should do, but I mean, I do understand that a lot of parents did it with the belief that they were doing what's right for their kid. I know that's why my mom did it. And at the same time, I know I'm able to establish that my mother, as a victim of abuse, I'm able to recognize things that she does that are maybe not the best, but I'm also not going to cut her out. There is a difference between, qualifiers of cutting someone out of your life, and acknowledging that, sometimes people genuinely do not mean harm and do shitty things.
But it can still be abuse. And in your case,
it can still totally be abuse. It depends on the context, and it depends on in Jason's context, that was abuse.
And Lori, I know you might not want to hear it, but if your parents called you fat, that was abuse. And it's something that you might not be easy to accept, but it's the truth. Because especially for women, um, I'm very thin productive.
Oh,
Okay, but it's still fat shame. It is, though. You can say that it's not, but it is. A lot of women have body image issues. A lot of women have eating disorders because of that type of stuff.
Yeah.
You can sit here and say it's not, but it is. It's
Lori, I have been institutionalized for an eating disorder. I cannot tell you how many people in that hospital were there primarily because of things their parents did. How many people's lives spiraled in terms of a relationship with eating because their parents were terrible to them about it.
My
it
parents cared
very
about
much a real thing. I'm a first-hand survivor of that. And a reason why I talk about it is because it's important for people to recognize so they don't do it.
So, but your parents cared about me. So you're believing a lie, Lori. Your parent. I'm not saying your parents didn't care about you, and as Will just said it didn't mean that they were intentionally trying to harm you or abuse you for doing that. But it is 100% emotional abuse, whether you want to admit it or not. There is nobody in here that is agreeing with you that it's not abuse. Now, we're not saying that your parents didn't intend to do it, but there's a lot of kids when they are young, like preteens, tweens, and young teens who get heavy before they shoot up. It is very common. And that doesn't mean that, just because you're heavy at that moment means you're going to stay that way. But whether you want to admit it or not, it is 100. Yes, Lori, it is. We can let it go. But yes, it is. We're not going to keep going back.
Beating a dead horse, Justin.
Huh?
You're beating a dead horse.
Yeah, we're beating a dead horse. Yeah. But nevertheless, we're going to drop that. But for anybody, but the problem with what Lori was doing in there is they were saying, please stop. This is not, oh, please.
Yeah, I know, but
you can't do that when you have other people in here who might have been victims of that type of thing to invalidate them, what they're doing. If you don't want to believe what it is, then you don't have to believe what it is. That is your prerogative, but for other people who are going through that, it invalidates them, and that's not okay.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a generational thing. It's such a gray line. There's no black and white situation about it. There is no this thing that you do, just like gender. There is no this thing that you do that you are cut off for this. You are not cut off for this. It is adaptable by person. It is adaptable by intent. We are human. Humans are complex, and ultimately, you need to do what is best for you. We don't know how much time we have on this earth. And there are 7-8 billion people on this earth. Spend your time with people who value you and who will make you feel good, because you don't have enough time for the opposite.
Yeah, I completely
from my nihilist Gen Z perspective who doesn't think I'm going to live past 40. But
Well, I used to think that too, and here I am at 40. So you will likely get past there. But yeah, it's not 18. Another 18 years is not as long as you think. I promise you. It goes very quick. So, anyways, going back to the topic at hand, the point of this discussion is to have a discussion where we identify things and talk about it, and that's what this is. I think that for again, unlike my mother, Jamie and I's father, Will's grandfather, is not a malignant narcissist. He is a very selfish person. He puts himself and his spouses first over his kids, and he's done that since we were all young. He wasn't part of our lives that much, and for me and for myself at least, a lot of that I will tell that it was not his fault, because my mother would not allow visitation for about a decade, and for my brother, though, the reason that they stopped talking originally was when they were getting divorced. You might not know this story, but when my parents were getting divorced,
I don't know anything. I know he was put in jail.
Okay, so my mom would skim money off of the businesses that they had, and so my dad owned a business at the time, I think a bar, and she was skimming money off of it, hiding money. Anytime they made money, she would take it and move it. She would literally send checks to family members to hide them in separate accounts. That's the same my mom did. So my dad, and it's irrelevant to the story because my dad wanted to know where the money was because they were getting divorced. He was entitled to half of the money. He was. So he put voice-activated tape recorders broke into her house, stole my brother's house key, broke into her house, put tape recorders under her bed, voice-activated, just to try to find where the money was. And he made my brother change the tapes out, and my brother naturally called. My brother got put in the middle of it at a very young age. When all of that was happening, I was 5, so my brother was 11, and that's a lot to go through. And my brother and I were both put in the middle of this divorce. It was very, very nasty, and it was not. And my brother, though, more so.
Oh, no. In the arms of the just and fly away from here. You're breaking up from this dark cold hotel room.
We're having an unstable moment here on YouTube. He couldn't keep a wife. They got divorced for everything. So we had a moment, Will, where there was
connection. No, we're back. I was singing a song about you.
Can you hear me? There it goes.
I can hear you now. We're back.
I don't know what's going on with the Wi-Fi here because I have a router literally one of my points right there. So I don't know. Maybe I need
it totally might be me again. I am a college student with cheap ass Wi-Fi. So,
but I'm the one hosting it, so it shouldn't be you.
Oh, okay.
I'm going out too. Anyways, he just can't hold a wife, and again, that's kind of one of those common denominator things. You know, he at this point has had multiple failed marriages. Most of the people on his side of the family don't want anything to do with him. He has little to no friends at this point. He's alienated 3 of his grandchildren completely. He's on his way to alienating, he's pretty much at the point where he's alienating the 4th by him making a comment that says that we aren't worth, basically, because here's what constitutes pain to him is us trying to resolve challenges that we have with him, and for him to say, hey, you can take me how I am or not, which is his prerogative, and I got to give him respect that at least he's not sugarcoating it or mincing words. He's saying, y'all aren't worth it to me. You can either take me as I am or not at all. And, you know, I'm not going to having a child, and I don't mean any disrespect to my sister at all, but having seen the relationships that that happened between Will and her sisters with somebody trying to force a relationship, I'm not going to do that to my child. I'm not. The same reason why I know that my mom abuses my brother's kids, and I'm not going to subject my daughter to that. She is the most important thing in my life, person in my life, and I refuse to put her through that. And you know, part of that was me learning through what Jamie went through, but I'm not going to have a transient grandfather who was there. And what was very interesting tonight, and I haven't told you this, I told your mom this, but I said to my daughter, who's 3.5 tonight, I said, hey, do you like, they go by Lita and Grandpa. I said, do you like Grandpa and Lita? And she goes, my daughter goes, I don't know. And I said, okay. I said, do you like Aunt Joy, my aunt? And she goes, yes. And I said, okay, do you like Gigi and Papa, Alyssa's parents? Yes. Do you like your Aunt Jamie? Yes. Do you like your Uncle Jason? Yes. Do you like Grandpa and Lita? Silence.
Why is the my Grandpa and Lita?
Yeah, because Grandpa and Lita, I guess, is possibly the Spanish or Peruvian word.
He refused to let us call him Grandpa because it made him look old.
No, I didn't give him the choice.
Nice.
And he is old. So, I mean, you know, he's 78. No matter how he wants to cut it, he is getting, you know, he's old. You know, he's not, you know, 78 now compared to 78 20 years ago. Does he treat his wife's kids better? So
his wife doesn't have kids.
His wife doesn't have kids.
He doesn't treat his wives well either. He's a bitch.
Yeah, his wife before that. So Jamie doesn't agree that Deborah was a wife, but she was. She
was a wife. They were together for like 9 years. She was a wife.
10. That was common law in Florida, 100%. I'll put it this way. She had a son. He was in his 30s and died unexpectedly. And 2 days later, because he can't cope with this type of stuff, he says, get over it. He tells Deborah, like literally 2-3 days later, get over it. Let's go see a movie. And I was down there for summer vacation when he died. And I knew that I had to stay down there longer and take like the semester off because I literally thought that Deborah would have killed herself if I wasn't being there, because he was not, I mean, she just lost her only child. He never liked the child though. And prior to that, he didn't like Barbara's kids. Cynthia's kids, I don't remember because I was young and they were young. And then my mom again, and then your grandmother. So,
in regards to how he treats his wives though, like, and that whole thing, like, yes, he prioritizes them over us, but he doesn't even prioritize them. The last thing that I did before COVID hit, February 2020, I tried to reconcile our relationship one final time, and we were out to dinner. It was me, him, and his wife, and he continuously got up to just go on his phone and make phone calls. He would just leave us at the table, and when he was at the table, he would be on his phone, doing who knows what. And I literally asked her, I'm like, does he always do this? Is this okay with you? She's kind of laughed it off. She's like, yeah, ha 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 ha. I would listen to them talk, and it would be mostly him like gaslighting her and telling her that she was wrong, and her just like listening to him talk.
Not letting her have a meal.
No, he's not good to his wives. So you wonder why he's had 6 wives. It's because he found women who would marry him, but not people who would tolerate him. And congrats, this one is in it for the money, and I support her entirely. If you can deal with that full time,
she's earning it.
And have sex with him.
She's
earning all your money.
Alyssa just said it's not that he can't cope; he's unable to understand unconditional love. That's my opinion. I think that that's probably a more accurate way of putting it. But here's the thing: going back to your phone thing, that's kind of been the issue. So he'll sit there and it's always, look what I've done, look what I've done, look what I've done for you. Like, I took my granddaughters to Europe; they didn't appreciate it. Well, he leaves off the part where he wouldn't let them eat. And he leaves out the part where they were crying every day because of the way he was treating them. Or, he'll say, oh, I went to every recital, everything that they had, they were in. Yeah, he would fly out there and do that. And he would be there physically, but he wouldn't be present.
My mom had to ask him in 1999 to not be on his phone during her wedding.
Yeah, I think a big
thing for her wedding was, would he stay off his phone? He did not.
No. And so even when he comes here, like, Victoria will be like, Grandpa, come play with me. And he'll be like, just a minute. And he gets off his phone. He never goes and plays with her. So, he might come up and be here present, like be here physically, but he's not present, if that makes sense. So it's a sad situation. I feel, and Will, let me finish this whole thing before you interject, because I know you're gonna immediately jump.
I'm gonna interject. I'm not gonna interject. Sorry, I'm not going to.
Okay, so I do feel very bad for him, because I think that he was dealt a really kind of shitty situation. But at the same time, when you get to a point, and not everybody has the ability to be self-aware or self-reflect, but when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've been married like a lot of times, and I don't really have many friends, and I don't have that many people in my family that talk to me. I'm almost perpetually having at least one of my children not speaking to me. Maybe I'm a common denominator. And, another thing that's frustrating for us, because he does have a very big vanity thing. Now, he's 78. And if you saw him, he doesn't look 78. Like, on his birthday, he's like, I'm going to do. Well, I will say, he's in the last few years, he's definitely aged more. I think that COVID really kind of messed with, he's had like 3 times.
He would challenge me to push-up contests. Back to the topic of like weight and food. He took it out on me. He would literally use me as a 12, 13-year-old kid to make himself feel better by challenging me to push-up contests. Like, yeah. He would just do that.
Yeah, he would always tell me, hey, I could do more push-ups than you. And I would respond with, well, I got a lot more years left than you. That's what I would say. So, but like, even so, like, talking to him becomes very difficult too, because he also needs hearing aids, but he refuses to accept that. And so even trying to have a conversation with him can be very, very challenging, because he gets very angry with you if you bring up the fact that he needs hearing aids, because it in his mind means that he's getting old. So he would rather not hear than admit. And the thing is, there's no shame in it, because especially men lose a certain decibel every decade. So given the fact that he is almost 80, and given the fact that when he was younger, he flew fighter jets, so he was around things with very loud noises, He probably has significant hearing loss, but he refuses to check it. He refuses to, I mean, literally he will yell at you, hang up the phone, etc. if you bring this up to him. But he can't even watch TV without captions on.
I can't watch TV without captions.
Well, now I can't either, but it's not because, but he can't do it because he can't hear it. I do it because, yeah, most older veterans need hearing aids, and
he loves to walk around with his little Navy fighter pilot hat. It's part of his fucking uniform. He loves to let everyone know he's a veteran, even though it's been like 60 years. And he never really like served in the fucking war, whatever. But anything else having to do with veterans, like actual issues that come with being a veteran, he wants nothing to do with. You know, you'd think he'd be, you know, he would get hearing aids and blame it on being in the Navy and use that as another excuse for empathy and excuse for, you know, bragging.
Lori's back, telling us to respect our elders. Respect is a two-way street, Lori. So I'm gonna say,
Lori, fuck no.
It's a two-way street.
He might be my elder in spirit, but as I said in my letter, and I will say now, I am more of a man than he will ever be.
I want to ask a question. So, Lori, I just have a quick question for you. If you have a child,
get Lori out of here. Fuck Lori.
Hold on, no. I just want to put this into perspective. If you have a child that was sexually abused by their father, okay, because that does happen, should that daughter still respect her elder? Let me know. I'm going to wait for your answer. Anyways, we have no idea what we've been through. I have a child. Doesn't matter what they've been through.
Lori, sucks for your kid. Get out of here.
No, I think that this is something important to talk about because this is kind of the things that we talk about with parents. So I'm not going to I'm not going to like address Lori specifically, but I will say specifically, okay, repeat, please. I said, so you're saying respect your elders. So let's say that you have a father that sexually abused his daughter. Should that daughter still respect her father because he's her elder and get over it because we don't know what they've been through? Let me know. But here's the thing. It doesn't matter here's what I'll tell you. It doesn't matter as a parent what you've been through. When you make the decision to have a child and bring that child into the world, you are making that decision. Whatever you went through is irrelevant compared to if it's so hard that you can't cope with it, then you shouldn't have children. It's that simple. If you can't cope with it, you shouldn't be a parent. Okay. I have a lot of shit that happened in my life. A lot of shit. Physical abuse, emotional abuse, not sexual abuse, at least not that I know of. That's a different game. Okay. Well, abuse. So what you're saying, hold on. I want to just bring this forward. So you're saying that sexual abuse is a different game, but physical abuse and emotional abuse aren't. You know, they all leave their own different scars. Some you don't see. So the thing is, I have a lot of things that happened in my background. But we chose, my wife and I, to have a child. And you can bet your ass that we made that decision consciously. And I've taken my experiences as a child and looked at what my parents have done or not done and chosen to be a different parent than what I went through, breaking a generational cycle. So you can choose to continue to perpetuate a cycle no matter what you've been through, or no matter what you've been through, you can be like, you know what? I've been through some shit. It does suck. I have to deal with that. I have to get therapy. I need to work through my issues. And hey, I'm going to be a better parent than I had. Now, does that mean I'm going to be a perfect father? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I'm not going to throw my kids in jail as a punishment, or have them committed as a punishment, or beat the shit out of them as a punishment. So I'm not saying that you do, Lori. I'm not saying that you do, but a lot of us have gone through that. And by you sitting here saying what you're saying, you are demeaning and trivializing the things that other abuse victims have gone through. And that's the point I'm trying to make here, is that just because you don't see it as abuse, you don't get to decide what is abuse to other people. And you don't get to decide what just because it wasn't called abuse in a certain period of time. Because look, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and hell, even the early 2000s, I've not said you've been abused at all. I'm talking about in general. But if you go through basically even the early 2000s, the parenting styles were very different. And a lot of things, specifically in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and prior, what is considered abuse now, because we have a lot more science behind it, we have a lot more knowledge behind it, wouldn't necessarily be abuse. Well, spanking, you know what? Spanking back when we were young, Laura, I don't know how old you are, but I'm 40. I'm assuming that you're within my realm, older or younger, give or take a few years. Spanking is abuse. Scientifically speaking, not even my opinion, you can Google the articles that shows that spanking to a child's brain, this is proof, this is something that y'all should know. Spanking to a child's brain, okay? A child cannot differentiate, the brain of a child cannot differentiate between being spanked and being punched. So in a child's brain, the way that the mind handles it and the way that the mind reacts is the same as if you were beating the shit out of them. So even though you think, hey, it's not a big deal, I was spanked. And look, I was spanked too with a belt, you know, and Will was spanked. We were spanked. No, you can say, yes, I could, but no, you cannot say that. You cannot say
I'm
what
left-handed.
child did.
If I had been left, is that inherent? Like, it was believed that being left-handed was bad and that they were doing it for the kids' good when they would be right-handed children. But now we acknowledge that that is bullshit. And does that mean that the people who beat the kids with the left, it's your logic is flawed, Lori. My final thing to you is please learn your audience. I don't think it's very sensitive of you to come in here where people are feeling not confident, but feeling comfortable to talk about abuse and narcissism, and come in here and
but I think Will,
it's not the vibe.
But the thing is, Will, I think that is important too, because, you know, like your mom, you know, for a lot of people, and I don't know how old Lori is, but a lot of people in my age and older and give or take younger, you know, a lot of things that happened, it was not abuse. I mean, it was abuse, but it wasn't back then. And back then, yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree. Lori is having, you can't see it on the TikTok side, but Lori is having good dialogue. And that's why, you know, if Lori, I thought
I'm not seeing Lori's dialogue.
I know. But in my opinion, though, if somebody comes into my live, nobody's trying to cancel Lori.
I'm not trying to cancel you, Lori.
I think they meant somebody else. I think they meant my dad. But what I know you're not. And that's the thing, Lori. If I thought that you were coming from a bad place, I would have muted you. I don't think that you're coming from a bad place. And I think that you're bringing up some very interesting talking points, which is why I enjoy it. And whether we end up agreeing or not agreeing at the end of this, I appreciate the dialogue for sure. So please know that. But for you know, for us, you know, a lot of stuff that we went through, it was just the way it was back then. And now we have science to know, you know, that, hey, we can go through and we can understand that this is what spanking does to a child's brain, and this is the after effects. And you said that you would remember your father hitting you or a parent hitting you, but you also remember being spanked. I remember being spanked.
I remember being spanked. It happened to me a handful of times, and I remember it.
So, you know, the thing about it is, and here's the thing, Lori, I'm not saying that your parents were being like purpose, you know, it was the way that they were raised. They were
doing what they thought was right.
Yeah, they were doing what they thought was right. And with the knowledge that they had back then, that is the way we were all raised. That's how it was. You can't go back and change it. That's just how we were raised. They want to know if we're going to read the letter tonight. What do you think?
I have not tonight. I think what I would like, I'm trying to get my live. I'm going to try and get my live privileges back on my main account.
I think that what we should do with this, I think that we could read excerpts tonight. A few things.
I gotta head out soon.
Okay, well, I can stay on and do that, and then we can switch to true crime, or I can go to bed. But I think that I can read a couple of the excerpts. I think the most important one for those coming in is toward the end of the line. Is I don't want to become attached to my children and grandchildren and be hurt ever again. It's not worth the pain, which basically says to us, based on the letter that we wrote. In fact, you know what? I'll tell you what. Whenever you sign off, I'll read the letter that I wrote him and what this is in response to. But
I think I'm going to actually post. I'm going to read the letter that I wrote to him, at least segments of it, and post it publicly on my account, just for the sake of my own putting it out there. And eventually, if Shakes Bleeds 2.0 gets any followers and I miraculously get 1,000, I would love to.
Yeah, they have to have 1,000 followers to go live. That's
my issue, is that although my main account has 50K, I was banned when I at 5K permanently for literally no reason. I don't know why, and I don't have live access. So if I make another account, that other account has to get 1,000 followers, and I don't really like begging for followers.
Well, you can. It's okay. What I would just do is tell people to follow you on your back.
Follow me on this freaking thing account.
but all right. So I'll read the letter that I wrote him, and then we can read some excerpts on it. I can at least read the parts that address me.
I want to give it a proper dramatic theater kid reading.
That's fine. I will read the parts of his that address me specifically, and I will leave the stuff that talks about Jamie out of it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what I do. So I appreciate you coming on, because I know it's late over there, and we should do this again. I think that this type of dialogue is important.
Absolutely.
For a lot of reasons. I think that it helps others, number one, recognize the signs of things in others. Right. Lori, you and I are totally cool. We're good. Everybody on TikTok.
Lori, we're cool too. I'm just defensive because this is tough for me.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to navigate. But yeah, I appreciate you too, Lori. Thank you for having a very good dialogue and being very respectful. That's what I love about a lot.
I just want to leave with one note for people: is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself, and
know that it wasn't your fault.
It's not your fault. It's never been your fault. Whether you are a victim of abuse, recognizing that maybe you engaged in some abusive behaviors without realizing it. You know, if you are a child of a victim of abuse, and that's like I am, and it, you know, reflects on you, like, forgive yourself and allow yourself to learn without feeling like that is wrong.
And the other thing too, I'll go a little bit further than that, and go moreover from a parent. Okay, let's switch it over. If you have hopefully some of this stuff helps you recognize signs of a partner if you're in that type of a relationship. Because I've seen some people in the comments and chat say stuff like that. We're gonna get there, Shar, in a second.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna hop off. I'll leave. That's some juicy tea. So you get to that, and I would love to come on eventually, and I will, probably on my end. Yeah, I'm gonna make some narc parents, some things like that. We'll see.
Yeah, I think that you should. I think that number one, it's healing and it helps others too. So
I know, and it's good for me as well. I'm just grappling with. I want to do TikTok, but the algorithm really hates me. So it's going to depend on the energy level that I have and demand. But
okay, so
have fun. I'm going to go to bed.
Yep. Okay. Have a good night. I'll talk to you soon. And don't forget to make me that stuff, the graphic stuff.
Yes, I will make you that stuff ASAP. Justin's going to have some super, super cool merch coming soon. You guys have literally no idea how amazing his merch is going to be. And I say that because I'm making it, and I'm allowed to be selfish because I think it's good. It's going to be really cool.
Nice.
Stay tuned. See ya.
Appreciate you. So on that note, I will give you some context. I will read you the letter that I wrote to him, because I want things to be transparent. Okay. I want you to know what I said to him. Mariah, it's Navy Wingman. I want it to be transparent, and I want you to know what I said, because I think that it's important, because if I just show his side without showing what I said, I just don't think that that's fair. So I want it to be fair. So I will read you verbatim what I said to him, and you can agree with me and not agree with me, whatever the case is. Okay. So to give anybody background who's been rolling in and making you not go to the beginning, my father and I have not talked in about 5 months. Okay. I'm about to read. Yes, correct. Meredith. That's what I'm about to read. To give you a little bit of background on what's happening, I'll make it very short. We haven't spoken 5 months due to an argument we had that had kind of been coming. A lot of the argument that we had centers around bigotry, racism. And so I use the term politics in here, but it's really not and misogyny. It's really not even politics. It's views that are not okay, that aren't really political. They're not okay no matter what side they are. But, you know, he wraps it into political stuff, which makes it difficult. So I'll read it to you, y'all knowing that. And the biggest challenge that I had with this whole thing was not me, was my daughter in this. So here's what he says. Here's what I said to him. I would strongly encourage you to read this letter in its entirety if you care about resolving things with Jamie and or myself. And I sent this to him on his birthday, by the way, because of what he did on my birthday, which maybe is petty, but whatever. That I'm petty, and that's fine. I said, as you turn 78 today, I would ask yourself how you want to spend the remaining years with the family that still wants to have a relationship with you. First, regarding Will's letter to you, you may have found it to be rude, disrespectful, or however you want to take it. But they said things that they felt needed to be said. By sending that letter, putting in the time, effort, and length that they spent, showed that they still cared. Your responding the way that you did to them showed that you didn't value them as your grandchild or as a person. Similarly, when I asked Roxana to show you the message after the Easter present you sent, In that message, I literally outlined and said that you had an open door to speak to Victoria, even if you weren't speaking to us, meaning Alyssa or I. What did you do? You chose to ignore it. So continue to let your pride impact your relationships with your family. I will say that I am truly grateful that you helped me with college, apartments, and a car. I am and always will be. That said, it was 20 years ago. Doing something nice for someone to hold it over their heads for the rest of your life gives the impression that you didn't do it out of the goodness of your heart and that strings were attached. Not saying they are or were, I'm just telling you the optics. Doing good things for people and constantly bragging about it shows that you didn't do it for the sake of being nice or doing the right thing. Although, when you choose to become a parent, you sign up for the obligation of parenthood, which includes food, shelter, clothing, and often education. All that said, it's been 5 months since you or Roxana made any attempt to reach out to Victoria. What makes it even worse is that you've made this decision over your political opinions. If you don't want to speak to Alyssa or me over it, fine. But letting politics impact your relationship with your granddaughter to the point where you make no attempts to reach out to her for months, how does that make you any different from my mother? So now let's talk about a few things. First, respect is not automatically given, it's earned and should be mutual. Taking it upon yourself to discuss our disagreements with your other children and ex-daughter-in-law is completely unacceptable and isn't a way to garner respect. Nor is it to use your TikTok, which you only have because of me, as an attempt to lie and run me down, which you attempted to do on a post and then deleted it when it didn't go your way. Remember, most of your followers are mutual. So they showed me your post and comments. Given that my platform is over 1 million now, this is a dangerous game to play. Anyway, to elaborate, in addition to being disrespectful, it's a very obvious attempt to pit siblings against each other. You've done it with me about Jason and Jamie. You've done it to Jamie about Jason and I, and to Jason and apparently Manuela, his ex-wife, about at least me. This is also something my mother would do consistently. Sorry, I'm going up. You never had any issue running your children down about their shortcomings to their siblings. You have never taken the opportunity to foster healthy and cohesive relationships. In the short periods that you have had everyone speaking to you, you could/should have used it to elevate yourself to the position of the family patriarch and to bring your children and grandchildren together so that they could meet and be with their aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. But every time the idea has been brought up to you, it's always met with the same objection: money. Money is often your motivator to do or not do things. For example, not bringing your children together, not going to your own sister's funeral, and not spending quality, uninterrupted time with your kids and grandkids when you visit. Going through the motions just to physically be somewhere when you're not mentally there doesn't foster meaningful relationships. Going back to Mickey, Mickey's his sister. That was her nickname. Her real name is Phyllis. Going back to Mickey, you didn't go to her funeral because she left you nothing, and she was your sister and left money to her children and grandchildren. You've made it clear that Roxana is getting everything and you are leaving nothing to your children and grandchildren. So should we learn from the example you set and not go to your funeral when that time comes? I know your typical response is something along the lines of your feelings are hurt and you're not going to let yourself be hurt anymore, or some snowflake response along those lines. What about Jamie, Jason, and myself and our children? Our feelings in being hurt by your actions and actions don't matter, only yours. That's also very much and I listed my mom's name, approach to things. The refusal to acknowledge the part you played in the feelings of others. I will also go where Jamie won't, but she shares my sentiments. Jamie, Alyssa, and I all really like Roxana. That's his wife. That said, you want her to be a grandmother to your grandchildren. She doesn't make any effort on her own to have a relationship with any of us, them. While we're in these moments of tension/non-speaking, she doesn't encourage or help you or us to repair the relationship. She also has never encouraged you to bring your kids together. She's very pleasant to be around. We like her, but anyone can see that she doesn't really care about us or our children, which is fine. It's not her responsibility. It's about being able to not work and jet set all over the world, because there is always money for that. Just not when trying to get your children together, or even when your kids get your kids' birthday cards for significant birthdays, i.e. 40 and 50. Jamie's been trying for 50 years to feel loved by you. She even went so far as to have Addison, her second child, on your birthday in an attempt to feel valued by you. You tell her how she should or shouldn't feel. You openly speak negatively about her and her kids in front of her, and then blame her for the failed relationships you have with them. You feel the things you chose to do for them are what matter to them, but you've never asked how they felt. Every person is different and has different needs and boundaries. almost over, I promise, guys. I know that a lasting legacy is important to you. At this point, you have alienated 2 of your children and 4 of your grandchildren. What type of lasting legacy do you think you're going to have with Jason only? This is an opportunity to look beyond yourself at a larger picture, at your legacy, and realize that you are not without your shortcomings. This is not an opportunity to turn it around on us, gaslight, and talk about your hurt feelings and make yourself the victim, something my mom does. Also, all of us have hurt feelings at this point, and Jamie's feelings and my feelings are just as valid as yours. You cannot learn to better yourself without listening to constructive criticism. Look at how many failed relationships you have, marriages, extended family, dissension with your children and grandchildren, a limited amount of friends. You have to realize that the common denominator here is you. Being a parent now myself, it is my job to protect Victoria. No scenario exists where Victoria has a transient grandfather who comes in and out of her life on a whim or hurt feelings. You are either part of her life or you're not. There is no middle. As there was with my mom, the same will be true with you. There is a time clock where your opportunity for a relationship closes, and you are 5 months into that window. Understand that we are wanting to maintain and have a relationship with you. We welcome the opportunity to have a conversation and attempt to resolve some of these issues maturely and effectively. The choice is yours. The ball is in your court. By the way, happy birthday. This letter may not be what you wanted, but it's still more than Jamie or I got on our 50th and 40th birthdays, respectively. As a reminder, it is also Addison's birthday. Don't forget to wish her a happy one. Love, Justin. This is what I said to him. That was my letter. I didn't sit here and blame him for anything specifically. I just said we all have hurt feelings. It would be nice to try to resolve them. So I can read his response. I'm going to look and see what YouTube said because that kind of covered it up. That is what I said, and I will give you his response at least to a degree. I'll read the parts that affect me, and I won't read the parts of Jamie. Because Justin, this was originally written in the third person, so I go back and forth between first and third persons. At the end, thank you guys. At the end is an AI response. We have children to bring happiness into our. This is what he said. This is his letter back to me. We have children to bring happiness into our lives, carry on our lineage, and give us grandchildren to love and enjoy as we age. The grandchildren's parent should never talk ill of the parent in front of the grandchildren, as this will poison the grandchildren and the harm will be irreputable. It is also the responsibility of both the parent and grandparent to make equal efforts to keep the grandchildren in their lives. Build and maintain relationships with grandparents. It's not solely the responsibility of either, and if one fails, there will be no relationship. Before anything else, it should be noted that all 3 of my children gave me grandchildren, but not a single one of them made any efforts to keep me in my grandchildren's lives. Almost all which this is not true, but I won't even defend myself. I'll just read. There's a lot of things that aren't. I'll just say this as I continue on. There are a lot of things that aren't full truths, or they're mistruths, or they're versions of a truth that may or may not exist. So before I say anything else, it should be noted that all 3 of my children gave me grandchildren, but not a single one of them made efforts to keep me in my grandchildren's lives. Almost all the contact, which included calls and video chats, were initiated by me. I read recently that contact with someone's grandchildren are the responsibility of both the grandparents and the parents. Though through no fault of my own, I have suffered heartbreak too many times having my children not being part of their lives in formative years. I miss graduations, first dates, first dances, and all the wonderful events in the lives of children growing from preschoolers to adults. Over the years, I have been there to the best of my ability for all my children, but not one of my children has been there for me. Also, over the years, I have suffered the pain of divorce where my children were miles apart, and for 10 years, visitation was illegally taken away by a malicious and evil mother that poisoned my 2 sons and abused my daughter, her stepdaughter. The pain in my heart not being there during my children's formative years will always be in my heart. In all these years, I am the one who made all the efforts to keep in contact, including many visits to all 3 cities my children lived in. My children never made effort to visit me unless they happened to be in the area. When my daughter's children were born, I drove to Jacksonville. During the course of the relationship with my daughter, Jamie, she frequently talked bad about me in front of her children, and in doing so turned them against me. I still traveled to be with her and my granddaughters for every important event in their lives, despite the fact that she lived 2,000 miles away. I went to San Diego several times a year for graduations, plays, birthdays, bat mitzvah, and never forgot presents on every appropriate occasion. Bond with her children, my granddaughters. For months I planned and took them on a trip. Oh, I was going to go through all this part because it's all Jamie stuff. So I'll skip the Jamie stuff. In regard to my son, Justin, that's me. Despite his often bad behavior, this is where we're going to get some mistruths here. In regard to my son, Justin, despite his often bad behavior, which included running away when he was living with me and stealing the car I gave him, despite he dropped out of college and he lied to me, including sending me fake grades, it didn't happen. Over the years, I paid $150 to $2 million for his education. I'm guessing that was a typo. Not that much. Sorry, I can't help it. I'm going to try to stop. Got lawyers for him when he got in trouble. I will say that was a car thing. Gave him thousands of dollars back when he purchased homes and had been totally there for him. I started a new company with hope that it would not only be successful for me, but give my children and grandchildren financial security. I also gave all my children stock in the company that my investors paid $2,500 for the shares I gave them. My son Justin knows the thousands of hours and thousands of dollars I put into the company. Justin had millions of likes on TikTok and a few 100,000 followers. He told me he would, and this is not what okay, I gotta stop. He told me he would influence it if the product to his followers for 15% of the profit. There are no profits until the 350,000 is recouped. But the fact that he even asked for it is beyond comprehension, where he should have offered to help me just because he stands so much to gain from the success of the product. When my granddaughter was born prematurely, my wife and I caught the first plane from Fort Lauderdale to Nashville. We flew up frequently for the next 3 years after Victoria's birth. Justin told me I would always be in Victoria's life, and he promised to make sure I would be frequently in video chat. I was deeply hurt when during my granddaughter's first trip to Disney, I was basically excluded. And they did not want me to stay in the condo they even rented, though his aunt and grandmother were not. We're going to come back and talk about this paragraph in a little bit. However, he made very little effort, and almost all the video chats and calls were initiated by me. The most recent highly disrespectful action was hanging up on me during a conversation, as he changed his politics and didn't respect my points of view and disrespected me by hanging up in the middle of a fairly innocuous conversation. I also want to point out in all the going on 8 years I've been married to Roxana, 8 years, neither one of you have ever called her on her birthday or any other time, ever including her birthday, but you say she should call you. Literally, we never said that. In closing, the relationship with my children and grandchildren has always been unilateral. They're never making the attempt to make sure I was in their children's lives, were never attempted. Though I think it's supposed to say throughout my parenthood. It says thought my parenthood, but throughout my parenthood, I have been deeply hurt, and it's hurt, and I am tired of being hurt by my children's lack of effort to keep me in the lives of my grandchildren. And consequently, I have been deeply hurt by my teen and adult granddaughters, as they too have never made an effort to care about me, never called, never sent cards, gifts, or anything else. This is except for Will, who sent me the most hurtful poison pen character assassination letter imaginable after I tried so hard to be a good grandfather. Regarding Alyssa, this is my wife. I used to, but now don't really feel that welcome when we are there. Also, over my Kanye West remark, Victoria was 15 feet away playing when I was talking to you about this heinous remarks about 6 million tortured and murdered Jews. Not being Jewish, she doesn't understand how it affects Jewish people. We're going to come back to this paragraph too. She came down on me very hard, extremely disrespectfully, and talked to me like I was a child. She should have handled it a lot more diplomatically, because I would never have done that to her. And despite the way I felt at the time, I did apologize, even though I felt I didn't do anything wrong. I was only talking about that one person who's an anti-Semitic. The last thing that bothers me in all this is almost over to you guys. The last thing that really bothers me in all these years, almost one or two exceptions, all of you have visited me in conjunction with something else that brought you to South Florida. I'm the one who's made every effort to go to Texas, to Tennessee, to Jacksonville, to San Diego. You all can travel all over the country and the world, but you can't visit your father. I visited my mother when I was in the Navy all the time. Regarding my politics, I wouldn't unfriend a family member over politics. I would just respect their opinion, and they should respect mine. Regarding Jamie, she says I don't want to hear her. I stopped talking about it. Recently, you changed your politics. I didn't change mine. When I was on the ship, I had to wait several hours to get a ham radio set in the radio room. to be able to call the States to connect to someone who had a ham radio that would forward my call to my mother. I called her once a month. I've always been there for you all as best I could under the circumstances I was in. Obviously, that isn't enough, and I don't know what else would have been. I never intended to hurt any of you. Accept me as me, or stated differently, let me be the same as I let you be. I don't want to become attached to my children, and this part's in all caps. I don't want to become attached to my children and grandchildren and be hurt ever again. It's not worth the pain. Then he talks about asking AI for a response about relationships with grandchildren. And it basically communicates what he said in the first paragraph. Actually, he copied and pasted the first paragraph. So that was the letter that he sent. I do want to go back and address a couple things from my point of view, because I feel like I have to be a little defensive of myself, even though I shouldn't be, but I will. I do want to address a couple things. You know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He said what he said, and whatever. So that is the letter. That is what happened. And here's the thing. I would love to have a relationship with him. He's not a mean person. He's not a mean person. He's not malignant like my mom. I think that he's incapable. He's emotionally immature, and he's incapable of unconditional love. And the thing that I'll talk about, this is where we've started to really have an issue. As things have gotten more problematic in the country, and as I have this platform, I'm going to come back to that in a second, JSP, in a second. Because I do want to talk on that. I think that's a good thing to talk. We'll talk about that too. But so the stuff about, he talked about his granddaughters, or grandchildren, I should say. He refuses to acknowledge Will's. He misgenders them constantly. Refuses to acknowledge them. They were children, right? And as the adult, it's your time. But the biggest problem, the reason they never connected, the reason he doesn't connect with Victoria, is because when he goes somewhere, he cannot be off his phone. He cannot. So he might be physically present, but he's not mentally present. And I think that he, like I said, is incapable of unconditional love, and he refuses to hear the challenges that others have with him. And for me, it's not even about me. I can get over a lot of things. I just don't want my daughter to go through what Will and their sisters went through. That's what I don't want. And so I'm not going to do a thing where there's a transient person in my daughter's life. I just can't be a good dad and do that. So Jamie and I have some decisions to make, and I think we're pretty much at those decisions. It's just the logistics of it, I suppose. It's challenging. And I'll be honest with you, and I said this to Will, and I've said this to Jamie. If he had treated my daughter the way that Jamie's children were treated, it would not keep going on. The politics that he refers to is changing, and I started to say this and then got distracted, was this. Not only do I not agree with his racism, misogyny, and bigotry, I am now vocally standing up against it, because I've kind of come to a place where my view is, if you stay silent against people like that, then you are part of the problem. The misogyny aspect for me is especially challenging, because having done a lot of the content that I've done and talked about on this platform, I'm going to get some water in a second. I speak a lot about women's rights and equality, and not being, just because a woman's wearing something doesn't mean that she deserves something. So I have to obviously speak about that, especially because I have a daughter, and I want a better world for my daughter than somebody viewing her as only some type of a sexual object, or something that, a man owns. That's not going to happen. If my daughter decides that she wants to be in a relationship and get married, I don't want it to be because she has to rely on a man. It could be because she wants to. That's what I want. I want to teach her all the things that she needs to do, set a very good example for her. And that's what I want to do. At the same time, I think that the Black community has a lot of challenges going on, and not with them, but with just, having equal rights and being, this was best put. I think actually Will said it today the best. I think that he articulated it so well. I'm going to steal it if he's still in here, but having equality and being equitable are not the same thing. Correct, Lynn. He objectifies the women, and then on top of that, the issue with the Kanye West character. Look, Kanye West said some really shitty things about Jewish people. I'm going to come back to the Jewish thing in a second. I haven't forgot. Said some really shitty things about Jewish people. And does that mean, though, that somebody who's Jewish or half Jewish or has Judaism in them at all should then respond to that throwing out a racial slur? No, it makes you no better than Kanye for doing that. And my father chose to throw out a racial slur that began with the letter N a few feet from my daughter. And y'all have kids, you remember at toddler age, they pick up everything. That is not a word that we use. We practice tolerance in this house. We practice that everybody, no matter what, is equal, whether they're yeah, I know, I agree with you, Shar. I agree with you. And that's not a word that we're going to use. The further part is that he is very like I said, transphobic and homophobic. He constantly comments on people's weights. I don't want my daughter to have body image issues because, you know what, for generations that's affected so many women and girls. I mean, think about a lot of our parents. Like, I had an almond for lunch, I'm full, because I mean, they literally had a supermodel named Twiggy. In that time, and they a lot of them dealt with body image issues, anorexia, bulimia, and we're trying to change that. So he does that. And then, so for him also to make a comment that, women wearing certain things means that they're asking for it or deserving to be abused. It's not okay. And like Alyssa responded, so Victoria's 14 years old. She's on the beach in a bikini. Does that mean she deserves to be abused? No, of course not. So going back to what y'all said in here, yes. What Kanye said to about the Jewish community it's dangerous. When you have people that are anti-Semitic saying the things that Kanye was saying, it breeds a form of neo-Nazism and perpetuates hate. And it goes the same way with any other marginalized group. It goes the same way when white people do the same thing about Black people. It creates hate and animosity and puts targets on their back. So, again, something that we're just not going to tolerate it. And yes, it is part of that generation. But here's the thing. He is 78. My grandmother is 90. My grandmother does not. I've never in my life heard my grandmother say the things that he has said. I've never heard her use the N-word. And again, she was born in 1933. I've never heard her talk negatively about another race. I've never heard her say anything at all about gay people, ever. And so my point is that it's not just that. No, okay, so JSP, my dad is Jewish by birth, but he does not practice the faith at all. I refer to him as Jewish. He doesn't. His sister used to remind him about the high holy days. He literally puts up a Christmas tree, and my mom was Catholic. So I'm half Jewish on his side by ethnicity and by birth, but I don't practice Judaism. In fact, there was one time him and my mom got into an argument where he was like, because we never went to any type of religious anything when I was growing up, at least not for my parents. And he wanted to raise us Jewish. Apparently that was an argument. And so my mom said, fine, take him to temple. He took us to temple one time. I remember that. It was a beautiful experience, but it was one time. She had who? No. Okay, no. Sorry, L. No, my grandmother on my mom's side. My grandmother on my maternal grandmother, my mom's mother was born in 1933, and my mom was born in 1952. My dad's mom was born in 1903, and he was born in 1945. His father was born in 1898. Both of my dad's parents were Jewish, yes. Has he been educated? We have tried to educate him, but he refuses to listen to it. That's kind of the issue. And that's the thing. You can't change the way that people think, right? You can't change the way that people think. But what you can do for that situation is you can set a boundary and you can say, okay, fine, you're going to think this way. I can't stop you from thinking this way, but we're not going to use these words around my child. But more importantly, not even more importantly than that, but equally as importantly to that, is you're also not going to come in and out of my life, the life of my child, and put her through some kind of mind game because of these things. Yes. Yes, I knew that. And the reason that used to be, so I don't know if you've heard about this, JSP, but that's changed a little bit in recent years, because it used to be to prove lineages, because you could prove that the child came from the mother if they were Jewish, but you didn't necessarily know if the father was Jewish, because, you didn't have paternity testing or DNA. Now with DNA, they can prove it. So it's starting to change in some churches. And I don't know if you knew that. I'm not saying that to like contradict. I'm just telling you that for educational purposes. I found it very interesting when I learned that. So anyways, that's what this is about. That's what this Tonight Live was about. It was not about true crime, but I do want to talk to y'all about that real quick, because I am getting to a point where it's 12:13 and I'm tired. My voice is about to give out. I do want to talk to you guys something about really important. So I'm actually very excited that I'm in the process of talking to somebody about a really cool. So I'm doing the podcast. A lot of y'all know this by now. If you don't, I can give you the details. But I'm doing the podcast, and the next episode is going to be where I'll be talking about the Grant and Gracie Solomon murder here in Nashville. We're going to talk about that. I'm also going to have Rose Davis on, as who's Gabby Petito's best friend, on another one. I'm going to try to get Joe Petito, but so true crime doesn't always end in murder. Okay, right? So this is one that I'm incredibly excited about. Because we said that we were going to talk about other things. So even though the podcast is called 50 Ways to Murder, so I'm stalling it. I'm like dragging it out. A lot of y'all know that I own a DeLorean. Okay. And I love my DeLorean. But for those of y'all who are old enough to know, there is a very interesting crime story that follows that car. And it involved the creator, John DeLorean, going to court. He was acquitted. He was entrapped and he was acquitted. But it's a very interesting story. Yes, I am doing a podcast. I'll come back and give you the details on it. So I reached out to Catherine DeLorean, who is John DeLorean's daughter. And I said, hey, I know you've been for a long time working on a project to get the truth of your dad's story out there. I recently launched a podcast. It's a true crime podcast. I hugely admire your father, and I would love to tell his story. And she said, yes. So I emailed her to work out the details. So on one of the podcast lives, I'm also going to have Catherine DeLorean. And even if you're not a car person, this story is beyond insane. Like beyond insane. And so I'm trying to get some people that will help lend credibility that are interesting. So definitely talk about it. So for those of y'all who asked, I have the podcast that's running. The podcast is called 50 Ways for Murder. If you go to my website, which is not currently in my bio because I put the YouTube link in there, which please follow me on YouTube if you don't. It is www. I don't need to put that, but Justin on TikTok, spelled normally, justinontiktok.com. You can go there and you can get to my podcast through Spotify or Apple. And listen to it. The first episode is up. And it's basically talking about how Alyssa and I got here, how we got to 1 million followers. And it was basically just an introduction for people who might not follow me on TikTok, who might come across the podcast, or people who have followed me on TikTok for a while, but maybe not for certain parts of the content. So that's what it's about. It's had good feedback, but I don't know if people would tell me. I mean, if people don't like it, I would wish they would tell me negative feedback so I can improve. But yeah, please check it out. It is out there. It is up there. It's probably not going to be a weekly podcast, at least not now, because I don't have time. I'm thinking bi-weekly or monthly. I got to start building the second episode. But yes, I've got a few things coming on that are going to be really, really cool. But yeah, the John DeLorean story is incredibly interesting. The man was a maverick. And I'll say this, to give you an idea of how incredibly important this man was to the automotive industry. There's not a single car on the road that's been made past the mid 60s that does not have a feature that he invented on. Every car since the mid 60s has a feature that he invented on it, including up to today on modern day cars. Cars coming out in 2023, 2024 models. There's not a car that doesn't have something he invented on it. So that is how incredible this man was. He also, aside from the DeLorean, invented, created the GTO. Starting the muscle car era, he created the Pontiac Grand Prix, the Firebird, just to name a couple of his creations. So anyway, it's a very interesting story. It involves cocaine, the FBI posing as cartel, and him getting arrested, and the British government, the American government. It's just incredible. It's an incredible story. And there's been so many rumors, and we're going to, like I said, talk about the truth on it. I think it's going to be really, really good. I'm super excited about that one, really a lot. So anyways, before I go, does anybody on YouTube or TikTok have any questions that I can answer before I leave tonight? And we will get back to true crime after this. But I appreciate y'all hanging out for a very different live. The podcast is called 50 Words for Murder. And the easiest way to find it on Spotify or Apple, at least, is to go to justinontiktok.com, which I will, after we get off this live, put that link back in my profile, justinontiktok.com. And you can find it from that link. You just scroll down and you'll see links to the podcast on Apple. It should be Apple and for Spotify. So yeah, anyways, good stuff coming up. I'm really excited. I'm trying to make the podcast really interesting and really credible, where people will, hopefully want to listen to it. 50 words for murder. 50 words for murder. Awesome. Y'all found it. Thank you guys. Thank y'all for, checking it out. I really appreciate it. All right, YouTube, I'm going to go ahead and sign off because y'all are being a little quiet over here. I'll talk to TikTok for a couple more minutes. And yeah, thank you guys for hanging out and participating in this live. Y'all are awesome. Have a great night.